I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got love, peace, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA.
Jiyu's perspective. Location, Mount Sajiri. Please let us make it in time. Jiyu couldn't help but mentally beg to whatever god that might be listening as he and Muakairo ran up the mountain to held his teacher's home. Just before he could reach the point in which they would see Urokodaki's home, he suddenly fell to his knees. What is this? He heard Muakairo's voice question, making Jiyu force his body to turn and look at one of his little brother figures. Shakingly reaching out, he placed a hand on the teenager's shoulder. It will be fine. But Tanjiro and Urokodaki-sensei need us, Jiyu says, making the mist Hashira nod before shakingly standing up. Jiyu quickly followed this accomplishment before both of them ran in the direction of this presence, and quickly hid behind a tree when they found two demons standing over a bloodied Tanjiro. Those demons, they're Upper Moon. But why would they come here? Is it because of Tanjiro or is there something else going on? Jiyu thought to himself, shaking as he saw them. A single Upper Moon could very much kill multiple Hashira, and they have two of them right here. I'm aware you are here, Slayers. I suggest coming out now. The demon with long black hair and purple Haori says without so much as looking in their direction. To which the other one seemed briefly confused before looking in their general direction, tensing up slightly. Silently cursing, Jiyu walked out from behind the tree as he signaled for his fellow Hashira to sneak around, to which he nods his head and does so. I suppose there is no point in hiding, Jiyu says as he openly reveals himself and steps into the clearing, barely keeping his rapidly beating heart in check as he gained the attention of both demons and saw their ranks. Upper Moons 3 and 1. But why would such powerful demon be working together and show up here of all places? Jiyu think to himself as he unsheathes his Nichiren sword, to which he saw the Upper Moon one smile ever so slightly before shifting his attention to the side. While I would like to praise your mental strength, Slayer, I think your friends should halt their attempts at sneaking around, the upper demon says, causing panic to rise within Jiyu despite still being able to keep his composure. Did this one have a blood demon art that could detect them? Before he could hope to react, the demon drew a blade and got ready to attack, so Jiyu took action. Second form, Water Wheel. Jiyu mentally yelled as he used the water breathing technique to try and stop whatever was about to happen, though it appeared that Muakairo had the idea to counter, as he used the second form of mist breathing to send multiple powerful slashes, but faster than either Hashira could react. Jiyu was knocked out of his attack by multiple slashes that thankfully didn't cut deep due to the water made by his attack, while Muakairo was kicked into a tree by a kick. So, two Hashiras showed up. I got to admit, I'm surprised by all the different types of people that seem drawn to this one mountain. The Upper Moon 3 comments with a small smile and stands up as he looks at both of the downed, though conscious, demon slayers. Your names, what are they? The purple-wearing demon questions the Hashiras, seeming to take his companion by surprise while Jiyu forced himself to stand. Why would that even matter? Jiyu breathes out as he makes use of recovery breathing to steady himself before standing in front of his little brother with a look of determination. However, this response seems to impress Upper Moon 1 if his nod was any indication, while Upper 3 whistles in appreciation. There are very few who have ever calmed their panic in my presence. Not only that, but you both have the will to stand and fight, so I wish to learn the names of the rare few who have ever done so. As for your fellow Hashira, there is something I wish to confirm, and his name shall provide that answer. The demon explains as he sheathes his blade but kept his hand on it in preparation for an attack, though Jiyu wasn't sure if the demon was preparing to attack himself or defend. I'm Jiyu. Tell me Oka Jiyu. Jiyu answers, hoping that this could help buy valuable time. He knew that the sun would begin to rise within a couple of minutes, so if he can draw this out then they might survive. Looking to his side while watching the demons, Jiyu saw Muakairo stand up on shaking legs while glaring with a fire that took the older Hashira back a bit. Takatu Muakairo, Muakairo says as he drew his Nichiren sword, to which Jiyu had to take a moment to realize the new stance Muakairo entered. Alright, I see. The Tsujakuni name has died out like I expected. Upper Moon 1 demon says with a somewhat melancholy tone that not only confused both Hashiras but also Upper Moon 3 as he looked at his fellow demon. Something up Kokoshibo. Upper 3 questions with a small smirk, only to get his head cut off from his upper jaw and above for the question. Why would you attack your own ally? Jiyu asks with a glare. Having had so many people close to him die throughout his life, the sight before him genuinely pissed him off. So he wouldn't hear our conversation. After all, I believe you have questions, Muakairo, the demon explained before looking at the mist Hashira, who swallows some spit before speaking up. I'll admit, yes, what do you mean by Tsujikuni? The teen asks, to which Jiyu stands in front of his little brother when Upper Moon 1 begins to move around. My name, back when I was a human and demon slayer, was Tsujikuni Michikatsu. The Tsujikuni clan existed all the way back during the Sengoku era. However, it has been hundreds of years, so quite inevitably, my family's name would change through the generations. Kokoshibo explains before pausing to look over the reactions of the Hashiras, to which Jiyu's eyes widened with shock. No, you don't mean, he questioned, to which the demon nods his head. Indeed, you, Nuakairo, are a member of the Tsujikuni family that I left behind, the descendant of my human child. So you are my offspring, he revealed, to which Jiyu didn't even need to look behind him to feel his fellow Hashira's shock and potential horror. Otaudo, Jiyu spoke softly as he looked over his shoulder, gaining the missed Hashira's attention while his apparent ancestor watched on curiously. Just because he claims to be your ancestor doesn't mean a thing. At the end of the day, you have already made your life and this doesn't change a thing. Jiyu reassures him, making Nuakairo take in a calming breath and nod his head. You're right, Nai-chan, he says before glaring at the demon, who looked at Jiyu curiously now. You call him your brother, yet you do not possess the same surname, and I see a few differences. Are you truly related to our family? He inquires as he tilts his head, making Jiyu glare with fury, but still made note that Upper Moon 3 was slowly regaining the upper half of his head. No, but for us, that does not matter, Jiyu explains, to which Kokoshibo nods his head in thought. Going for the hilt of his sword, the demon quickly draws it and charges forward at a speed Jiyu could barely see. 11th form, dead calm. Jiyu barely spoke in time to activate the new water-breathing form he made, to which he felt his body move faster than his own mind could comprehend in an attempt to defend himself. First form, Dark Moon, Evening Palace, Kokoshibo says, drawing out his blade a little out of reach from Jiyu, but it resulted in creating numerous chaotic crescent blades that lashed out at him. Thankfully, Jiyu felt a sudden increase in his strength and following the attacks became slightly easier, but he was still overwhelmed by the speed and power of his opponent, and so, Jiyu Tomioka, the water Hashira, lost his left eye to Upper Moon 1. However, luck appeared to be on his side as before the demon could hope to continue with an attack, an intense mist covered the area as a powerful slash was sent towards the demon from within. However, Jiyu didn't need to see to know that the attack was avoided, but Nuakairo used the opportunity to take Jiyu and gain some distance from their opponent, and thus stand protectively above Tanjiro. Mist and water. I see. I must admit, not bad. Especially the development of the new techniques of your breathes. Nuakairo, as of this year, you are 14, and your technique is refined for your age. Jiyu, I would say that you are 21 as of now, and your technique may surpass the Sengoku era water Hashira. Despite faltering before even seeing me, you suppressed it to challenge me and cut me down, Kokoshibo says with a small smile before nodding his head as if he made a decision. I suppose it should be expected of my descendant. My blood may have been watered down, but that is trivial. Even if my name has died out, my cells have increased and remained within you, Nuakairo. As for you, Jiyu, I should apologize for initially thinking light of you. One who is considered family by my blood should never be underestimated. Which is why your awakening to that mark is truly tragic, he says with a small semblance of sadness, confusing Jiyu as to what he is talking about. So he looked at Nuakairo and widened his eyes in shock as he saw red mist cloud patterns on both sides of his cheeks and one on the left side of his forehead. Nuakairo, Jiyu speaks in concern, drawing his attention and causing the young Hashira to look at him in confusion before widening his eyes in surprise. Jiyu-san, why is there a mark on your cheek? The teen questions, to which the water Hashira tenses slightly. So, he also had this mysterious mark as well. That mark is known as the Demon Slayer mark. It enhances the power of a Demon Slayer upon awakening, to the point of being superhuman. However, those who awaken to it shall die at the age of 25, unless, the incredibly old demon explained to them, shocking Jiyu with this information but focuses on his opponent. You become demons. It is the only way to avoid the mark's curse now, and for your talents to not die before you reach your peaks. The demon offered, even cutting his arm to bleed and offer his hand to them, causing Jiyu to scowl at him as he got into a defensive stance and he felt Nuakairo do the same. Why would you offer such a thing when you know we won't accept? The water Hashira questions, to which Upper Moon 1 merely shakes his head sadly. A descendant of my own cells is something I never imagined. It warms my heart to know one exists, and is already so strong. I am also curious about one who is labeled as family by them. I doubt that man will reject either of you as well, Kokushibo says in a way that felt like he was attempting to reassure them. But Muakairo steps forward with a scowl on his face. You have already hurt our family. What makes you think we will accept? He questions, to which the demon shakes his head. If it is about Jiyu's eye, he will regain it upon his transformation. Upper Moon One says, causing Jiyu growl. That doesn't mean a thing to me. But if you think I'll let you get anywhere near Muakairo, you are dead wrong, Jiyu declares, to which the demon sighs sadly. I see. Akaza, let's finish the mission, Kokushibo says, making Jiyu widen his eyes in horror. He completely forgot about the other demon. Turning around, he saw Upper Moon 3 appear behind both himself and Muakairo, and was about to land a fatal blow on them both. Fourth form, Constrictive Love. They hear another yell, to which a familiar whip-like Nichiren blade wrapped around Akaza to restrain him before he could land his attack, and spun him around while throwing him next to Upper Moon 1. Sigh, thank you, Mitsuri-san, Muakairo says with gratitude clear in his voice as another Hashira appeared next to them, drawing Jiyu's attention as he looked at her with his only eye. Mitsuri Kenroji is a curvaceous young woman of average height and muscular build with a slightly pale complexion and round, pale green eyes with long eyelashes, a small beauty mark beneath each of them. She has long, light pink hair that fades into a lime green color at the halfway point, which she wears in 3 thick braids. She has 5 shorter, choppy clumps hanging over her face as voluminous bangs, the tips lime green as well. She was also wearing a heavily modified pink-tinted version of the standard Demon Slayer uniform along with a plain white haori. However, he did avert his eye away when his gaze arrived at her chest area, as that part of her uniform was left unbuttoned. But he didn't need to continue looking over her to know that the rest of her clothes consisted of a short, pleated skirt in place of the usual Tatsuki Hakama pants, a pair of navy blue thigh-high socks layered with the vertically striped lime green socks, and a pair of white zori with pink straps. Yeah, you can deal with her, Kokushibo. Akaza spoke a bit awkwardly as he looked over Mitsuri, making Upper Moon 1 sigh before looking up at the sky. We have very little time before the sun rises. We shall leave them injured and put the boy in the shade of some trees, before leaving to be safe, Kokushibo decides, making Akaza scowl, but did not protest before both demons charged forward. The Hashira were lucky the sun began to shine on the mountain a minute later. Tanjiro's perspective. Hurts so much, but, family, be safe, please, Tanjiro begs with tears flowing down his eyes as he began to crawl across the ground. He was in the shade of numerous trees that was surrounded by the bad light. If he wanted to get back home, he had to go through. Sniff sniff. Otaudo, Oni-chan, Oji-chan. Hurt, he says with fear as the scent of their blood hit his nose, and another close to his brother's that was injured just as badly. Got to save, the young demon says as he forced his aching body to stand up, barely able to stand but forced himself to do so. For his family, he had to be strong. He was a big brother. It was his job to look after siblings and family. Sorry, but must, to save. Tanjiro mumbles to himself weakly, knowing that what he was about to do will break a promise he made to his family. The promise to not go into bad light. And so, Tanjiro Kamado reached his hand out into the bad light and Mitsuri's perspective. Location. Ugh, what happened? Mitsuri, the love Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, questions as she tries to sit up, but felt agonizing pain course through her body as she does so, causing her to scream for a moment. Why you? Oh, okay, need our rest, she heard a quiet and almost dehydrated voice ask her, taking Mitsuri aback for a moment that she didn't notice a presence by her side until they spoke, causing the girl to turn her head to the side and saw an adorable little boy with red eyes looking at her, though she couldn't make out all of the details since her vision was blurred due to both exhaustion and pain. To think that breath-using demon was so strong. If I'm alive, then the sun must have risen before we could have been killed. She did think critically for a moment, but did nod her head to the child's question with a small smile. I'm fine. Thank you so much for the concern though. Wait, is there anyone else injured here? She asks, as right after reassuring the kid, she remembered that both Tomioka and Takedo were badly injured, possibly much worse than herself, and she didn't know if they are okay. You, KN no, Mataudo, Oni-chan, and Oji-chan, the boy asks, confusing Mitsuri for a moment. She was sad to know that the boy's brothers and grandfather were apparently hurt, but how did he confuse her fellow Hashira for one of them? She should probably describe them. No, one has a half haori and the other has long black hair that changes color near the end. The Hashira tries to explain to the boy, her vision beginning to focus a bit more, so while she could more clearly see the child in front of her, she didn't notice his eyes or the fangs. Yes, Otaudo and Oni-chan. Okay, the little boy says happily with a bit of struggle, surprising Mitsuri. Are Muakairo-kun and Jiyu-kun really this little boy's siblings? She knew the two weren't related, but they were quite close, so them considering each other's siblings wasn't a surprise. But how did this adorable child get involved? No, focus Mitsuri. The both of them might just be hanging on by a thread for all you know. The love Hashira had to mentally scold herself for a moment before focusing on the boy once more. Are they all really okay? As in they are awake? She asks with concern clear in her voice, making the boy nod his head happily with a large smile on his face. Wait, were those fangs she saw? No, probably just her imagination. F family, okay. WW want. See. Them. Can. Bring here. The poor boy says, to which Mitsuri now began to get a little concerned for the kid. Has he never spoken until recently? I would appreciate that little guy. Thank you for all the help, Mitsuri says as she gives into the adorableness of this child and pulls him into a hug and mentally squeals when the boy leans into the hug and gives one of his own. Eventually though, she did let go of him as the boy left for his brothers and Mitsuri sighed and laid down her head on a pillow to calm down her aching head. Mitsuri-san. She heard a quiet voice call out, making her turn her head to see Muakairo walk over to the futon she was resting in. Ah, Muakairo-kun, I'm so glad to see you okay, she says in her usually happy tone once she noticed her fellow Hashira, leaving her surprised when she saw him smile for just a moment before sighing. I guess you met my demonic older brother, huh? The mist Hashira says, his body tensing, but the love Hashira didn't notice because she was distracted by the shock she felt from the sentence. I'm sorry, did I just hear you right? She asked a bit uneasily, resulting in the teenager nodding his head. Yes, though, he hasn't eaten human flesh or drank human blood because of his love for family. That has been the case for 2 years now, and I'm sure you realize the amount of opportunities he had to eat us all from today alone, but instead helped us, Muakairo quickly explained while looking at her with a slight glare, leaving Mitsuri amazed. To think that the passive boy was this defensive about someone and appeared ready to fight for his apparent brother in his current state. But, that's so adorable and amazing. The older Hashira couldn't stop herself from squealing at the admirable determination of Muakairo, and the incredible willpower that demon boy must have to not hurt anyone. I guess this means you won't tell the other Hashira. After all, someone like Seimi would try to kill my brother despite him not hurting anyone. The mist Hashira correctly brings up, to which Mitsuri takes a moment to think on it and not. Besides, if Muakairo and Tomioka of all the Hashira are trying this, then who is she to take away something that brought genuine happiness to her fellow Hashira? Nezuko's perspective. Time skip, 2 days later. Location, Mount Fujikasen. Hanako. Nezuko yelled with relief as she saw her baby sister near the wisteria exit, drawing the attention of the 12-year-old girl as she charged and brought her into a tight hug, one that her sister returned just as fiercely. Huh? Is this your Nechen, Nahoka? She heard another girl ask, though it was a bit muffled since the person was likely wearing a mask, but Nezuko paid them no mind. Though, she became confused as she felt her sister nod while they still held each other tightly. Yep, Nechen. Who is that boy with you? Hanako says happily to the other person, to which Nezuko raised her head briefly to get a good look at the girl wearing a boar head before reluctantly letting go of her sister and standing up. Well Hanako, this is Genya. I met him after we got separated and he has been helping me look for you and we protected each other while on the mountain. Nezuko explained to her sister as she motioned to her new friend, who rubs the back of his neck awkwardly before raising his hand with a wave. Nice to meet you kid, Genya says with a weak and nervous smile, to which Hanako gives him a large smile as she nods at him in acknowledgement. It's really nice to meet you as well Genya-san. Thank you for helping my sister, she says before bowing, only causing the poor boy to become more nervous, but he did nod at her with a smile. Hey, did you all forget about me? The boar head-wearing girl questioned, causing the siblings and Genya to jump back in shock, though Hanako quickly recomposed herself. Oh, sorry Ai-chan. Nechen, this is Ai and she helped me out like Genya did for you. She is really nice. Hanako introduced her new friend, making Nezuko nod with a smile before walking forward and holding out a hand to the girl. Thank you for looking after my little sister Ai-san. My name is Nezuko by the way. She introduced herself to the girl, to which she could feel a smirk from the boar head-wearing girl as she grabbed her hand and shook it. No problem Nezuko. I am the benevolent Ai after all, she says, confusing Nezuko for a moment before hearing her sister sigh. That isn't Nezuko's name, Genya says in confusion, causing Hanako to step forward to explain. Ai-chan apparently grew up in the wilderness on a mountain a bit away from here, so she hasn't interacted with other humans much. In short, she isn't exactly the best with the stuff we consider normal, Hanako explained, to which Nezuko and Genya made sounds of recognition before nodding. Anyways, we should probably head back so we can pass and get our swords, Genya says, to which the group nods and goes down the wisteria path and entered a clearing, to which Nezuko had a quick look around and saw that only the two siblings from back when they started the final selection were there and another who stood a ways away in yellow clothing. No, are we the only ones to survive? Nezuko thinks in horror, glancing to the side and saw that while Genya kept his composure, his eyes told her that he was also unsettled by this possibility, while Hanako looked at her with fear as her sister realized that this was all but guaranteed. Hey, keep your chins up. Just because we are the only ones here doesn't mean that all the others died. We could have left at any point before today, remember, Ai says when she noticed the atmosphere surrounding them, even placing a hand on Hanako's shoulder. This action caused Nezuko to smile at the girl and give a silent thank you before the small group stood in front of the two children. Welcome back. I would like to congratulate all of you for surviving and making it back safely, the black-haired sibling says to them, to which Nezuko makes note of the mumbling of the group and Hanako letting out a sigh of relief. However, she did notice that the yellow-wearing girl off to the side didn't show any sign of a reaction. So, what are we supposed to do now? Genya questions the two siblings, making Nezuko look at him, and the look was able to make Genya sigh and relax slightly. She knew he was anxious to get their blades and join the Corps. She was also anxious because it allowed her another step forward in helping Tanjiro. But they did need to be patient. First, we will provide your Corps uniform. We will take your measurements and then engrave your starting rank, the white-haired sibling began to explain after taking over for their sibling, but paused and looked over to allow the black-haired sibling to continue. There are 10 ranks: Kino, Kinoto, Hino, Hinoto, Tsuchino, Tsuchinoto, Kano, Kinoto, Mizuno and Mizunoto. Right now, you are all the bottom rank of Mizunoto. The black-haired sibling took the chance to continue on with their speech. So in short, we need to prove our strength to rank up. But what are new weapons? Don't you provide them or something? Ai asks the two children, causing the white-haired sibling to nod their head. Today, we shall provide you a variety of ore that you will choose for a swordsmith to utilize and create your own Nichiren swords. This will be a process that will take up to 2 weeks for them to accomplish. Now, we shall assign you a Kasugai crow, the white-haired sibling explained to the newly cemented demon slayers, to which they all looked up as they heard the flapping of wings and a crow either landed on their arms or shoulders. I'm Nezuko Kamado and it's nice to meet you. I hope that we can get along, Nezuko says to the crow perched on her shoulder, who appears to puff out his chest in pride. You might not be a crow, but I know we'll be a great pair. I'm Hanako Kamado, by the way, Hanako says cheerfully, drawing Nezuko's attention as she saw a sparrow land in Hanako's hand instead of a crow, to which she heard the tweets of the little guy. Unlike her brother, Nezuko didn't have the ability to understand animals like he could, especially a bird, but she knew enough to make out the sparrow saying Yukogi, which she assumed was his name. When you are all done with the introduction to your new allies, you may come over here to choose the ore that will be used to create your katana, the black-haired sibling said after waiting for a moment, grabbing the attention of the new demon slayers as they all walked over to the selection of ore placed on a nearby table. We need to choose the ore. I can tell apart charcoal from other ores without issue, but ones used for metal was never our speciality, Nezuko thought to herself, knowing that even Tanjiro would be stumped by the options and be left unaware of which ore is the best. However, Nezuko looked over to her left and saw Hanako reach out after using her sense of smell and grab an ore for herself. I suppose overthinking it isn't going to help in the long run. Alright, intuition, don't let me down, Nezuko thought to herself before relaxing slightly and reach out, picking up an ore for herself and saw the others have done so as well. Thank you all for the effort you have put in until now. Place the ores on the empty table and they shall be delivered to the swordsmith that shall forge your blade. And if you have any personal requests for how your weapon is made, then I recommend to have your trainer send a note and shall be delivered at their location by the swordsmith themselves. The white-haired sibling began to explain once each of them chose their ore, causing Ai to hold up her arm and began to speak once she had the attention of the sibling. What about me? I don't have a trainer to send that note or stay at, Ai brought up, to which Nezuko almost spoke up but held her tongue back. She was grateful for what Ai did for her sister, but if she offered to allow her to stay with them at Yurikodaki's until the weapon was delivered, but she had no clue how she would react to Tanjiro. It was simply too much of a risk for the older sister to take, and if the uncomfortable look from Hanako was anything to go by, Her little sister felt the same way. You may stay at the butterfly estate during the next 2 weeks and the Hashira that owns it can send the letter in your stead. You may also train there in the meantime or simply relax, the black-haired sibling answered, causing the boar mask-wearing girl to nod her head in thanks, and so the group placed their oars down on the vacant table and began to go their separate way. But Nezuko and Hanako were stopped when the two siblings spoke up. "Excuse us, Kamado-san, but there is something we must discuss with you and your sister real quick," the white-haired sibling said, confusing Nezuko as a bit of panic began to rise in her gut and her intuition blared out a warning. Why was it acting up? Wait, did they somehow know about Tanjiro? No, that should be impossible, right? Is something? Hanako asks innocently, to which Nezuko positioned herself in a way that could pull Hanako at a moment's notice. But the words that came out of the white-haired sibling's mouth nearly caused Nezuko's heart to stop. Sakonji Yurikodaki, the former water Hashira, has been critically injured and is within the hospital of the Butterfly Estate as we speak. Akaza's perspective. Location, Infinity Castle. That was odd, Akaza thought to himself, feeling the very cells of his body mend back together as he walked away from both Kokushibo and Muzan, hearing the sound of a biwa playing for a moment and finding himself elsewhere in the seemingly infinite space of the Infinity Castle. But he wasn't concerned about that for now. No, what he was concerned about was the Demon King's reaction to his and Kokushibo's report. Now, Akaza was fully expecting a punishment and even prepared himself for it. Heck, the puddle of his blood that was left behind was an example of that. And the only reason he was likely not regenerating from a flesh puddle was because the information he gave on the newborn demon seemed satisfying for Muzan. Yet for some reason, Muzan-sama, I believe that you should know. The water and mist Hashiras have awakened to the mark. Those were the very words that Upper Moon 1 said, and the reaction of the Demon King left Upper Moon 3 confused. He briefly saw some kind of mark on the water Hashira's cheek during their brief fight. A shame, since he did want to enjoy it more. But he simply thought it was a tattoo he didn't notice initially because of the demon brat's poison having a greater effect than what he initially thought. And yet Muzan-sama saw it as important enough to dismiss me. I'll take the small victory given the shit show today proved to be. But what exactly is so important about that brat and Mark? Akaza couldn't help but question to himself, but he couldn't think about the subject any further, and he felt an arm be placed on his shoulder, causing his eyebrow to twitch, sign he was also here. Hey, it's good to see you again, Lord Akaza. You seem to have gotten yourself in quite the situation, huh? The demon heard the annoyingly fake cheeriness of a fellow demon, making him growl as he spoke. Get your arm off me, Akaza warns, barely containing his anger. Why, out of all the demons he could have encountered in this damn place, was it him? Seems like you really are annoyed. Though, I suppose I should expect such a thing since the great Upper Moon 3 was put on the back foot by an old man, a fledgling demon and a couple of sticks. The demon says, with Akaza being able to hear the large grin on his face already, causing the Upper Moon 3 demon to swing out an arm that instantly took off the lower jaw of his fellow demon and causing them to stumble back for a moment. Whoa, oh, nice punch. Are you even stronger than before, Lord Akaza? The demon questions after taking a slight moment to completely regrow his lower jaw, finally causing Akaza to turn around to face the demon with a growl of rage and his veins bulging in irritation. What is it that you want, Dama? He questioned the grinning demon. Dama being a male standing at 6.5 tall with a toned and muscular body. Like almost every demon, Dama has a notably pale complexion and possessed unusually long, pointed claw-like nails that appeared to be stained with a pale blue color. His hair was a pale golden blonde, and he wore it parted to his left, the shorter parts around his face seeming to flare out to either side around his head, curving backwards with one strand left down his face to fall between his eyes, while the longer parts were left to drape centrally down his back in a thinning spiral. Dama's eye possessed multiple colors like a rainbow, mainly being blue, yellow, and red in pastel tones, while the kanji for upper rank and 2 were etched into his eyes, signifying the demon as the Upper Moon 2 of the 12 Kazuki. Dama was wearing a blood-red turtleneck of a design that made it appear that the section between his neck and upper chest is covered by a black substance that looks like it's dripping slightly down his body. This same design repeated at his wrists and down his hands, as well as on the small, circular blood stain he adorned on his head. Below this, he wore a pair of straight, tan-colored hakama pants of a pinstripe design, their cuffs visibly loose, which he secured with a pale, green-tinged golden belt, its buckle of bright silver. He was also wearing black tabi socks on his feet. though Akaza's fury felt ready to burst as he saw a woman's corpse being dragged across the ground by Deme, multiple chunks of flesh having been eaten by the demon, while what Akaza assumed was the head that belonged to the corpse rolled across the ground, having been knocked out of Deme's hands by his earlier attack. "Oh, I can't have a talk with my best friend, especially while he is in trouble with Muzan-sama," the higher-ranked demon says as he got in front of Akaza, having the woman's head in his hand again and held it out in offering to him. "You must be hungry after that ordeal on that mountain. Don't worry, I have no problem sharing since I have plenty to spare," Deme says, to which Akaza scowls as he walks away from the younger demon. "Don't you have something better to do, like looking for some kid?" Akaza questions, smirking mentally as he saw the seemingly cheerful demon freeze up, a dark aura emanating from him for just a moment before it disappeared as quickly as it came. I suppose you are right. Still, if you ever want to hang out, I'm always available, Lord Akaza," Deme says before walking in a different direction, with the sound of a biwa playing for a moment and the demon was gone from Akaza's vision. Thank God. Right now, Akaza was willing to take this small victory, and was thankful for it. Muzan's perspective. "I see. While the return of the mark will be annoying for a while, it won't be a problem for long. Is there anything else I should know?" Muzan says after taking a moment to think and ultimately deciding to be cautious for the immediate future, but overall was left unconcerned for now. At worst, he will have to wait out a few generations before the mark is forgotten once more. "Indeed, one of the Hashira that awakened the mark. They are my descendant. I would like your permission to transform him into a demon, Muzan-sama," Kokoshibo says, to which Muzan was a little surprised. To think his Upper Moon 1/2 human family lived into the current era was surprising. But overall, if you can get your blood into him, then very well. However, if your descendant is killed by any of the other moons, then it is of no concern to me. Muzan decides to grant the request of Kokoshibo. While this might be Kokoshibo's human sentiment talking, something that Muzan utterly despised, he supposed he allowed the lower-ranking Kazuki members to get away with it. What with Akaza's refusal to eat women or even fight them is possible. The continued existence of Rui's family and allowing Daki the position of Upper Moon 6 thanks to Jutaro asking for him to share the position with his sister. So why should Kokoshibo's request be that different? "I thank you, Muzan-sama, but I must inquire, why are you interested in the fledgling demon? He may be able to join the 12 Kazuki as he is, and climb up the ranks within a few years' time. But you never acted this way with other possible candidates," Kokoshibo asks, making Muzan chuckle a bit. He supposed that if any demon was going to notice, it would be his Upper Moon one. While having the Komodo brat on our side would be beneficial, and I considered it in the past, my connection to him is weak but still there. However, I am unable to establish a full link unless he is in great danger or pushed to his limit, and even then, the link is very brief. Ultimately though, my main motivation back then was that I simply didn't want to lose control of a demon like I did with Tamayo, and deal with a demon that could give the core information on me while wasting the blood I gave him. Suffice to say, I was seconds away from simply sending Akaza earlier on to simply kill the boy when I couldn't bend him to my will. That was until I noticed something interesting in his shattered memories, Muzan says with a small smirk, picking up a glass canister and stirring rod and proceeding to mix together a few chemicals. "You mean a connection to my brother? If so, I can confirm that he has no blood relation to either of us, Muzan-sama," Kokoshibo guesses, making Muzan shake his head in amusement while focusing on the chemicals. "No, that was something I realized around a year ago. Rather, that the boy knew of the location of the blue spider lily in his human life," Muzan explained with a smirk, causing Kokoshibo's eyes to widen in shock. Jiyu's perspective. Location, Demon Slayer headquarters. "Is Tanjiro okay?" Muakairo questioned Jiyu as they both approached the area where the Hashira and the Master usually held the Hashira meetings, to which Jiyu nods his head. "Nobody really comes to the water estate besides you, and I told Tanjiro to keep an eye out for unfamiliar scents and hide if they approach the estate. For now, we need to give the report and see if the Kamado sisters did pass." The water Hashira assured his younger brother, causing him to sigh in exhaustion that Jiyu couldn't blame him for. "You both look like shit," was the rude greeting that came from Sanmi Shinazugawa, the wind Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, as soon as they entered the opening. Looking around through his single working eye, Jiyu saw that all of the other Hashira had arrived already, and that Iguro Obanai, while up in a tree at the moment, was effectively hovering around Mitsuri protectively since her right arm was broken and still healing, but thankfully she would make a full recovery in a few weeks while him and Nuakairo would take a few days longer. Who are you again? Nuakairo asked their comrade, to which Jiyu had to fight back a smirk as he not only heard the growl from the temperamental man, but also saw the brief glint in Nuakairo's eyes. Seems like him forgetting saying his name was a lie. This time at least. I must say, Tomioka, you look quite flamboyant with the eye patch. Tenjin Uzui, the sound Hashira, says to the water Hashira as an attempt to possibly cheer him up and possibly provide a bit of comfort for his disability, resulting in Jiyu only giving a nod of acknowledgement and a quick thanks. Ara, I'm glad to see you are recovering quite well, Tomioka-san. Though, I am curious as to how you, Nuakairo-kun and Mitsuri-chan ended up in the conditions you all are in. Shinobu Kacho, the insect Hashira, says with a smile, though Jiyu was able to detect a fair bit of genuine concern from her. It is for the best to wait for Oyakata-sama to arrive. Besides, there is also the concern of those who pass the final selection. Jiyu says, to which he heard a scoff come from one of the other Hashira, but ultimately, they silently agreed and so sat in a comfortable silence for most. Oyakata-sama is approaching. Iguro Obanai, the snake Hashira, says after hearing a hiss from his snake companion. Dropping down from the tree branch he was lying on to kneel towards the approaching leader of the demon slayers, to which the rest of the Hashira quickly followed in kneeling before their leader. Good morning everyone. We have some really nice weather today. Is the sky blue? The gentle voice of their leader greeted the gathered Hashira, two of his children carefully walking beside their father. Yes, Oyakata-sama, the Hashira responded as one, a few such as Mitsuri even smiling a bit at seeing him once more. I am glad to hear that you are all still here. As for you, Jiyu, Mitsuri and Nuakairo, I have heard the extent of your injuries and hope you all make a full recovery. My condolences as well for your lose, Jiyu. Their master says, the brief relief in his voice clear as day before taking a saddened and sympathetic note as he addressed the three injured Hashira. We thank you for your concern, master, Jiyu says for the three of them, seeing Oyakata-sama nod with a gentle smile. Now then, while I would like to get the full report on what happened to you three, I must ask for the report to wait for now. Kiria, can you provide the results for this year's final selection please? The master gently requests of his son, causing the black-haired child to nod his head and step in front of his father before taking out a piece of paper and looking it over. As of this year, we had a total of 25 participants that entered the final selection. After 7 days, up to 8 participants had left before the final day while 6 ended up passing, making it likely that the unaccounted 11 had died during the final selection. The passing participants have all been registered and both their uniforms and Nichiren blades are being made as we speak, Kiria explained before placing the paper away, to which Kanata steps forward, signifying that some additional information was going to be given. Due to one of the participants, a young girl named Ai Kanzaki, having no cultivator to return to or a known place of residence, she will be sent to the Butterfly Estate until she is given the standard Demon Slayer Corps uniform and blades and is sent out on a mission. The white-haired girl explained, briefly sending a look to Shinobu, causing the insect Hashira to nod with her signature smile. Me and the children at the estate shall look after her in the meantime, the young woman assured her, causing the child to smile for a bit before she and her brother took steps back to be by their father's side once again. I thank you both. Now then, my children, may I ask for your thoughts on this year's results? Oyakata-sama asks of them, to which the one to first respond is Obanai. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed, master. Not only have we got less members than last year, but at the rate the lower-ranked demon slayers are dying, we aren't able to refill the ranks fast enough. The snake Hashira shares his opinion as they all continued to kneel before the master, but all raised their heads to face him properly now. I must agree. The candidates the cultivators have been training as of late have had a lack of flashiness as of late, and the few that have passed during the last few years aren't flamboyant anymore, with very few exceptions. Uzui Tenjin agrees with their comrade's thoughts, speaking loudly yet respectfully as he does so. I pray for those poor, lost souls, was the answer of Jaiomai Haimjima, the stone Hashira and strongest amongst them, as he brought his hands together in a prayer as tears flowed down from his milky white eyes, a sign of the man's blindness. However, in the back of his mind, Jiyu couldn't help but wonder if the Marquis and Nuakairo gain may have allowed them to surpass the strongest Hashira. Come on now, I'm sure everyone did their best. Besides, since some have survived, they come again next year when they are much stronger, Mitsuri says in the defense of the cultivators and the failed participants who survived, though the uneasy look showed her worry for the core ranks and the lack of surviving participants that came from the final selection. Well, whatever the case may be, I say that we cheer on our new comrades. The loud and proud voice Kyojiro Rengoku, the flame Hashira, says with a large smile as he radiated optimism for the future of the new demon slayers. Can you stop shouting for a minute? Most of those brats are probably going to only be food for the demons in the long run anyways. Same, says to the positive Hashira, with Jiyu being able to tell that he was only holding back from yelling and cursing due to the presence of both the master and his children. While we might be losing members, the quality of most of our remaining slayers is above average in comparison to previous generations. Best to have quality if we can't have quantity as well. Jiyu gives his opinion, deciding to defend his little sisters even if not directly from the wind Hashira's dismissiveness of them. What were we talking about again? Muakairo asks, with Jiyu being able to tell that the question was an actually genuine one this time. I see. Thank you all for your honest opinions, my children. Now then, Mitsuri, Jiyu and Muakairo, can you all be so kind as to reveal how you all ended up in this state? Oyakata-sama asks of them gently, to which Mitsuri couldn't but laugh a little sheepishly. Sorry Oyakata-sama, but I only joined the encounter near the end. In fact, I only followed because I noticed both Muakairo-kun and Tomioka-san rushing over somewhere in the middle of the night and felt like I should follow. Mitsuri explained a bit nervously. It's fine Mitsuri-san. Was ultimately for the better that you did follow actually, Jiyu assured her, ignoring the utter shock that overcame the faces of the rest of the Hashira. In that case, I trust that you will explain the circumstances behind your current conditions, their master urged gently, making the water Hashira nod his head as he explained everything. In the middle of the night, I got a letter from my former mentor, Sakonji Urakodaki, requesting for aid from both me and Muakairo as he sensed a powerful demonic presence approaching him rapidly. When we arrived, Urakodaki-san was gravely injured and standing above him was Upper Moon's 3 and 1. Jiyu began the explanation, but stopped as the others made sounds of shock and began to ask questions but ultimately silenced themselves when the master waved a hand calmly to reassure them and urged him to continue. Knowing that we couldn't face either Upper Moon head-on, let alone at once, I revealed myself when Upper Moon 1, who is named Kokoshibo, called us out. However, he still detected Muakairo's presence and lashed out, and while we were able to block and counter, he overpowered the both of us with ease, and so we began to bide time for the sun to rise. Midway through the encounter, both myself and Muakairo gained some kind of mark that took him by surprise and revealed some information. Jiyu continued on with the opportunity given to him, but he stopped to look at Muakairo with when he saw the boy flinch. Something that Gyomai also noticed despite his blindness. Is some wrong, Muakairo? Gyomai asked gently, causing the mist Hashira to sigh in exhaustion before looking at Jiyu's single eye with a silent request that he understood, and so nodded his head. With that, Muakairo explained his apparent connection to Upper Moon 1, the limited time given to them by the mark despite its benefits, and ending with how they and Mitsuri were barely left alive. Thankfully though, a boy nearby noticed us all and brought into some shelter. From there, he was able to provide enough medical attention to keep us alive long enough for the three of us to live and return here, where we got proper treatment for our injuries. Jiyu eventually took back over for his brother once he explained everything while using the cover story they made up to hide Tanjiro's existence, making Oyakata-sama hum thoughtfully. This is troubling news. If Muzan is allowing his demons to work together, especially his strongest demons, then we may need to take precautions for the future, their master says, to which Muakairo got an idea and spoke up. Oyakata-sama, might I suggest having our members group up in squads more? It will increase their chances of survival if demons are truly beginning to work together, and they can be watched over by a slayer or two of higher ranks for the newer members. The Mist Hashira suggests, to which Jiyu quickly realized what his brother was trying to do. Increase the chances of survival of the Kamado sisters and allow at least one of them to stay by their side if an Upper Moon attacks again. That might actually be a good idea. In fact, perhaps we could have our newest members work together to test this idea. Mitsuri adds in, to which Tenjin laughed a bit. In that case, I think I know the most flamboyant person that will be perfect for them. The sound Hashira says, to which their master nods his head with a smile in response. I believe that will be for the best. Mitsuri, Muakairo and Jiyu, the three of you shall take some time off your duties to properly recover while a squad of demon slayers shall be sent to watch over your districts in the meantime. For now, you are all dismissed, so go get some well-deserved rest. Oyakata-sama orders, making the Hashira all bow their heads to the man. Yes, Oyakata-sama, they all said in unison before standing and going their separate ways for now, but Muakairo and Jiyu almost immediately rushed to the butterfly estate to see Urakodaki. After all, they didn't know if the former Hashira would even survive his injuries. Notes, and that is that. Hopefully the old man will be okay. Anyways, I hope that you liked Akaza's confusion. The reason why he got off light in comparison to what many of you likely expected is simply because Muzan had more concerning matters to discuss with Kokushibo. So while Akaza was punished more harshly than he was after the Mugen train arc, it was overall pretty quick. Dema also got some fun fodder to throw at Akaza for a while. But I wonder why he reacted the way he did when Akaza brought up a kid. I guess we'll have to wait for a bit. Next is Kokushibo and Muzan's discussion, to which Muakairo now not only runs the risk of being turned in the future, but Muzan explains his fascination with Tanjiro. Also yes, it was stated in one of the fan books that Tanjiro and Kai actually know where the blue spider lily grows, so Muzan would be able to catch a glimpse of the flower thanks to his very weak link to Tanjiro's mind, and hey, the power the Komodo has will be beneficial if Muzan get him under control again. Finally is the Hashira meeting, to which not only do the rest of the Hashira know what happened with the encounter between 3 of their fellow Hashira and 2 upper moons, but cautious steps have been taken by No, making it a necessity for their members to be paired up in groups and having the passing members of the Kamaboko squad be used as a way to experiment with the idea. I also wonder who Tenjin was talking about when he thought of a higher ranked demon slayer watching over the group. Teisho's secret. Dama was actually watching the entirety of Akaza's mission through their mental link and had been snacking on women corpses the entire time as if it was popcorn and would have actually died of laughter had it not been for his demonic biology. The female corpse he had when physically confronting Akaza was also the last one he had when watching the disastrous mission. Thank you all for reading and I hope you all have a good day. Nezuko's perspective. Location, Butterfly Estate. Hey, Nezuko, Nahoka, why are you? They both saw AI in front of the building that Nezuko could safely assume was the Butterfly Estate given that Hanako could smell Urakodaki-san scent here. Sorry AI-chan, but we can't quite know. Hanako yelled in a rush as the sisters sped past the poor confused girl, running into a building where Hanako could likely smell their Oji-chan. They both stopped to catch their breaths a bit as they stopped just short of running right into a woman, causing Nezuko to look her over. The woman standing before them has a slender build and stood around 52 tall with a pale skin complexion, though not to an unhealthy degree. She had long, straight, black hair that reached just below her waist, worn down with 2 shorter clumps over her shoulders, and arched, ear-length bangs on either side of her face. Her eyes were a pale violet and slanted towards the sides of her face, bright and bug-like, with many notable white sparkles reflecting light off of them. As for her clothes, she wore a purple-tinted version of the ones Jiyu wore under his Haori, as well as a piece of black fabric around her calves and Zori with pale straps. She also sported a pair of green and pink butterfly hairpins that she wore adorned on either side of her head and finally was wearing a white butterfly-patterned Haori that fades to mint green then pink toward the cuff and hem. However, Nezuko's eyes grew sympathetic as she saw the woman using a pair of crutches to move around. Oh, hello there. Are the both of you here to visit someone? The woman greeted them kindly with a soft smile, to which Nezuko couldn't help but be reminded of her mother as she felt the warmth and care behind that smile. Yes, we're sorry for rushing in, miss, but do you know where Urakodaki-sensei is? Hanako asks the woman with a polite bow, quickly snapping Nezuko back to reality as she followed her sister's lead. Looking up a bit, she saw the surprise in the woman's eyes before they turned sympathetic and her smile somehow became more gentle. I see. In that case, Zenitsu-kun, do you mind taking these 2 to our old friend? The woman asks as she turns her head, to which Nezuko follows her gaze and saw a black-haired boy squirming behind her. Looking over this Zenitsu in detail, Nezuko made note that he was 5 3/4 tall with fair skin and downward sloped, scared-looking eyes that fade from soft brown to gold. He has short, pitch-black colored hair of varying lengths that falls in front of his face in uneven bangs. The boy was also wearing a uniform like Muakairo's but tinted with a brown color alongside a white scarf and white nurse dress that was kept in place by an orange sash. Sure thing, one-sama, Zenitsu says with a small smile, and Nezuko was a little confused when she saw a blush on his face while the injured woman giggled a bit in amusement before the boy motioned the siblings to follow him, to which both girls did so and Nezuko saw Hanako's shifting as they followed the boy at a walking pace. Not that Nezuko can blame her sister, as she knew that Hanako can smell Oji-chan and so knows where he is, but Neither of us know how he is except that Hanako will be able to smell any blood on him. Just what happened? Do Muakairo and Giyu know? Is Tanjiro okay? Oni-chan, what would you have done in this situation? Nezuko thinks to herself as her breathing quickens in worry, but takes a brief moment to calm down where she heard her brother's voice within her head. Calm down, Nezuko. There was nothing you could have done, so don't blame yourself, especially when you have done an amazing job in becoming so strong. Especially since you protected Hanako. Tanjiro's voice tells her cheerfully, though this was one of the incredibly rare times when Nezuko couldn't take comfort in it. She still wasn't around to protect her family again, nor was she even able to protect her sister within the final selection. Is right here, but I must ask that you be quiet and give him space since it took a lot of effort to get him stable. She heard the voice of Zenitsu say, snapping the eldest daughter to snap out of her thoughts as she registered that she, Hanako, and Zenitsu were standing in front of a closed door, the very one that likely has their teacher waiting behind it. Thank you so much, Zenitsu-san, Nezuko says with the boy, causing the boy to stutter with a bit of a blush before quickly leaving, confusing Nezuko slightly before shaking her head and turning to the door and saw Hanako effectively burst through. Ojii-chan. Hanako screamed into the room, to which Nezuko heard a cough as she quickly followed her sister into the room and couldn't stop both the overwhelming joy and crippling pain she felt as she saw her sensei and grandfather figure practically bound to the bed he was lying on. She also felt a bit off seeing the man without his usual red tengu outside of his home, but the gentle appearance of his wrinkled face was still comforting to see. Nezuko, Hanako, Urakodaki says with a smile, though he began to cough once more when he spoke their names, causing both girls to immediately run to his side and hug him, though they thankfully were able to stop themselves from clinging onto him tightly for his sake. Oji-chan, thank Hinakami you're okay, Nezuko says, barely holding back her tears and sobs while hearing her sister either failing to accomplish the same task, or simply not even trying to do so. Don't worry about this old man, I'm just glad you could return safely, Urakodaki tells them gently as he embraced both sisters with a single arm each, to which the family enjoyed the silence as they took comfort with each other's presence when they began to hear two sets of rapidly approaching feet. Da Urakodaki-san, Giyu spoke as he came into the room in a hurry, causing Hanako to gasp in horror while Nezuko placed her hand over her mouth and widened her eyes in shock as she saw a couple of scars across Muakairo's body and an eye patch over Giyu's left eye, to which she saw a bit of a scar past the dark blue fabric of the eye patch. Giyu-san, Muakairo-san, Hanako yelled out as she carefully, but quickly got out of the weak grasp of Urakodaki and ran over to them in concern, to which Muakairo smiled at his fellow Mist Breath user and brought her into a hug. Congratulations on passing the final selection, you two. We're glad to see you're safe, Muakairo says, raising his head and giving Nezuko a nod of acknowledgement that caused Nezuko to nod in return with a small smile before looking at Giyu's missing eye and back to the bedridden Urakodaki. Just what happened to you three? Nezuko asks uneasily, to which she heard a sigh from Urakodaki while the two Hashiras sat down on a chair each next to his bed, causing Nezuko to sit on one herself while her sister sat in her lap. From there, the three injured demon slayers began to explain what happened while Nezuko and Hanako were left horrified by the information. One of the strongest demons alive coming after Tanjiro and being the culprit behind Oji-chan's injuries. The second most powerful demon attacking their brother and leaving him covered in his own blood and then taking Giyu's eye and would have. Oh, Hinakami, I would have lost my family again. I would have lost them to demons. Those two, I promise that I will make you pay. Nezuko thought to herself, a hatred that had been reserved only for Muzan Kibutsuji taking over her as she memorized the details of the demons given to her by her family. Wait, what about Nai-chan? Hanako asks in worry, causing Nezuko to hug her sister from behind in the hopes that not only will it calm her down, but also allow her to hold back her worry as she listened to the three in worry. Your brother is fine. He healed up long before we got here. Urakodaki assured the sisters of their brother's physical condition, but looked to the two less injured slayers, causing Giyu to nod. He is currently in the water estate and will hide if he smells someone he doesn't recognize. Not likely to happen though, since not only is it a bit away from headquarters, but only Muakairo visits and I get my missions from Kanzaburo. Giyu assured them with a small smile, causing the sisters to relax in relief a bit, thankful that Tanjiro wasn't in danger. Thank Hinakami-sama. But, can we visit Nai-chan, Aniki? Hanako asks him, causing the young adult to nod his head with a small smile on his face. Sure thing. Muakairo, do you mind taking them to Tanjiro? Jiyu asked, causing the young demon slayer to nod his head, standing up to give Urakodaki a quick hug before moving over to the door of Urakodaki's room. Come on you two. Also, I suggest you prepare yourselves for Tanjiro to launch himself at you, Yuichiro says with a small smirk, causing Hanako to giggle a little nervously since she knew that was true, while Nezuko merely smiled at the very likely to be true statement as they left Jiyu and Urakodaki alone for now. Tanjiro's perspective. Location, Water Estate. Wait a minute. Those scents. Nezuko. Hanako. They're okay. Pink Thing and creepy Hanafuda look-alike didn't get to them. Suffice to say, the very moment that Tanjiro was able to detect the scent of his baby sisters and Otauto approaching place with half smell, he ran out of the room he was in and stood in front of the front entrance while staying away from bad light. He didn't want to scare them after everything that just happened after all. Nai-chan. Divided by Oni I-chan. Both of his precious sister yelled out, causing Tanjiro to smile behind his new muzzle as his heart practically leapt in both concern and joy. Concern because he could see the bruises and scrapes on them both, but feeling joy at simply knowing that they were safe. His sisters were truly some of the most amazing people in the world. Growing slightly, he caught both Imautos in his arms and spun around a bit to keep his footing and held them above the ground without any issue, but held them both closely, but gently. While he knew that whatever happened was something they needed to do, the knowledge he couldn't follow and protect them truly hurt. Tanjiro, thank God you're okay. He heard Nezuko, though he couldn't understand the sounds she was making besides his own name. He grew concerned as he heard her hiccup and felt tears dampen his clothing a little. Nai-chan, we're sorry for. Hanako struggled to speak through her own sobs, to which the sorry of the sound stood out to him. Why would his Imautos have to be sorry? Wait, did they blame themselves for what happened because of Pink Marking Thing and creepy Hanafuda look-alike? 4,000? Tanjiro made a muffled sound of denial as he pieced together what is wrong with his sisters, putting them down gently and bumping them on the heads lightly, though both still reacted in a bit of pain as they rubbed their head with their hands in a manner that felt familiar to him. But why? Oh, why did you hit me, Nai-chan? The young boy with black hair and dark red eyes questions with tears in his eyes, rubbing his head from the spot where he was hit. Because you shouldn't blame yourself for my scar, Takeo. I wouldn't hesitate to push you out of the way again. Tanjiro's own voice speaks as he looked down at the younger boy with a small smile. Tanjiro, he heard the voice of Otauto ask, snapping Tanjiro's mind back to reality, and looked at his younger brother figure, finding himself confused on why was he so close. Did he bring the family here into a hug? Wait, GRR. Tanjiro felt a growl escape his throat as he stood in front of his family as he smelt someone with a strong scent approaching. And moments later, he saw. What was that? Was that a demon? No, they smelt human. But what was up with the boar head if they are human? Oi, Nahoka and Bazuko. What was? Why is there a demon with you? Boarhead asked, confusing Tanjiro on who this Nahoka and Bazuko were. So why did his Imautos make sounds in response to Boarhead's question? Honestly, Tanjiro just wanted to sleep again now and avoid this mess. Notes and cliffhanger. Starting off with the beginning, we have a surprising survivor compared to her canon counterpart. Allow me to introduce you to Kani Kacho, everyone. Though she is currently crippled despite her survival. I won't go into the details behind how she survived, but I can confirm that me swapping the roles of the Kamaboko squad ended up with the butterfly effect of her surviving, though the details on how will need to wait. As for Zenitsu, I will say that he was found fairly early on in his life by the Butterfly Sisters when compared to Jigoro Kyuujima, so a lot of his experiences that caused things like Zenitsu's conscious cowardice, and being used by that girl for money and placing Zenitsu in debt was avoided. So he isn't insistent on getting married or checking out and trying to impress girls when compared to his canon counterpart, resulting in him being shy like we saw in this chapter. More about him will be revealed though, such as if he is still a demon slayer, or not here. Yes, you are okay, Odaki is alive. Sorry for the caps. Anyways, I was happy to reveal that Water Grandpa survived. I'm sorry I couldn't think of a way to reveal his exact condition naturally outside of being alive but pretty injured still. So, I shall reveal here that while the former Water Hashira is alive, the injuries he gained from Akaza on his old body has resulted in him being crippled permanently, meaning he'll be bound to a wheelchair in the future and will have an effect on things later on since he is in the Demon Slayer's headquarters unlike in canon, where he stayed at his home throughout the series. Fun fact, Urakodaki caught on to Jiyu almost calling him dad and kept him behind to tease him with that fact and to have a talk that I'm sure everyone wanted them to have in canon and finally put the events of Jiyu and Sabito's final selection in the past. Lastly, Tanjiro is fine. I really enjoyed exploring his mindset when reunited with his sisters, especially since he is going to be paranoid after his encounter with two upper moons. I hope that you will all enjoy what I have planned there, both in terms of humor and possible angst. Also, AI has met Tanjiro. Let's hope she'll listen. Taisho's secret. When Tanjiro woke up after being asleep for a year, he actually broke Yurikodaki's hypnosis when he mostly destroyed his connection to Muzan. Because of this, Tanjiro will see humans for who they are instead of projecting his family on them, though enough of the spell remains to cause Tanjiro to regain memories when truly reminded of his family to a great extent. The only part of the hypnosis left completely untouched is the protect family part, which actually locks away all of Tanjiro's demonic aggression until he sees his family hurt. Hanako's perspective. Location, Water Estate. So, this little demon is your older brother. Not going to lie, he looks weak. AI says, all 5 of them now sitting in the main room of the Water Estate as the boar-head-wearing girl watched Tanjiro kick his legs back and forth absent-mindedly as he likely didn't understand what was going on. This being a fact that hurt Hanako's heart, as she knows her brother would likely try to get to know AI thanks to her being Hanako's friend. She never noticed the light in her brother's glazed-over eyes as his gaze focused in on AI. Indeed, the reason he hasn't been killed is because he hasn't harmed a single human since being turned, and trust me when I say that he has had plenty of opportunities. Nezuko explained to the girl, passing her a bowl of ramen, prompting the wild girl to look at it for a moment before taking off her mask. So, how did that happen? The both of you definitely aren't demons. The girl asks before picking up the bowl curiously, causing Hanako to smile as she grabbed a pair of chopsticks in the bowl and quickly explained to her how to use them. You don't know how demons reproduce? Muakairo asks, a bit surprised that someone who joined the Corps wasn't even aware of the version that a demon slayer tells citizens that are exposed to the demon-slaying world, especially those who had their family turned into a demon. I didn't even know that they were called demons until a few months ago. I'd only learnt more about them in terms of weaknesses and such when I got my swords from some dead guy. AI explained nonchalantly, causing Hanako to flinch at the lack of care her friend had with the mention of death. She couldn't blame AI since she grew up in the wild, but it was still unsettling for Hanako. Well, in short, the Demon King goes around and gives his blood to humans. When he does so, that person is transformed into a demon and all the cells in their body will crave human flesh. Despite this though, Tanjiro has fought his hunger off and has even defended humans from other demons before. Muakairo explained to the new member of the Corps, causing her to nod before turning her attention to the ramen bowl in front of her and began to eat, quickly becoming delighted by the taste and gobbling it all down. They all heard Tanjiro hum through his muzzle and stand up. A little confused, Hanako just sat back and watched her brother approach AI and bonked her on the head, grabbing the ramen bowl when it fell out of AI's hands as she reached them up to rub her head while the sisters gasped in shock, just noticing Muakairo widening his eyes in surprise and opening his mouth a little in shock. Hey, what's your? AI began to yell in anger and reach for one of her swords, making Nezuko stand up with a hard glare while Hanako began to panic a bit. But everyone stopped whatever they were going to do as Tanjiro rubbed her head softly, quickly calming down the wild girl of her rage before the eldest Kamado then placed down the bowl of ramen and began to gently feed it to AI with a closed-eye smile. The sight caused Nezuko to laugh while Hanako giggled a little, piecing together her brother's thought process. What is Gulpy doing? AI questioned, barely having the time to speak as Tanjiro gently fed her food, to which Nezuko wiped away a tear before eventually getting her breathing under control again. Ha. Sorry, it's just that one of our brothers used to gobble down all the food offered to him, so Tanjiro pretty much fed him so he doesn't choke on whatever he was eating. Nezuko explained with a sad smile, causing Hanako to remember the many times that happened with Shidru. Tanjiro responded through his muzzle happily, succeeding in having AI finish the whole bowl while AI seemed confused on what to do. That was until Tanjiro grabbed her hand and began to drag her to one of the bathrooms within the estate. What is Tanjiro doing? Muakairo asks, to which they could hear the muffled yells of AI through the closed door. I'm not sure. Nezuko had to admit, to which AI's yells quickly became screams and continued through the door, causing Hanako to approach the door and try to open it, but found that she couldn't as something was pushing against it to keep anyone from getting in. Oni-chan, what are you doing? Hanako asks in confusion and a bit of worry, to which she just barely heard her brother's muffled voice and something running. Suddenly though, Hanako could breathe a bit easier as she could smell AI's scent. Oh, that's what was happening. Oni-chan is trying to give AI-chan a bath. Hanako began to giggle as she figured out what was happening. surprising Muakairo and Nezuko before her older sister began to laugh while Muakairo smiled in amusement, a light chuckle escaping his lips. With that, the three of them began to play with a deck of cards that they found within the estate and explained in great detail to Muakairo about the final selection, with the Demon Slayer actually paying attention once Hanako got to the point where she survived with AI. And Nezuko shared her experience with Genya and his unique ability. Genya, I think I remember him from somewhere. What was I talking about again? Muakairo briefly interrupted, causing the sisters to smile fondly, until they saw Muakairo beat them for the 15th time while they weren't paying attention. Aw, how are you so good at this game? Hanako asks with a small whine, making Muakairo smirk as he reached out with his arm and rubbed her head fondly. Because I can pay attention while doing multiple things, the young teen explained, chuckling a little when she proceeded to pout adorably. They all heard the cheerful muffled call of Tanjiro, causing the three of them to turn their heads and see Tanjiro standing just in front of the bathroom door, before then stepping to the side and holding out his arms in a way that tells them to look at what he wants them to see. Because of this, the Kamado sister and Muakairo were allowed to see AI. Her hair and body now much cleaner than before and smelling much nicer as well. She was still wearing her clothes from earlier though, except now she was wearing a bear hide fur jacket that left her arms and stomach exposed, but covered up her friend's bandaged up chest. However, Hanako couldn't stop herself from bursting out into laughter when she saw the content, yet annoyed face of her new friend. AI's perspective. Time skip, 5 days. Location, Butterfly Estate. Hey you, I challenge you to a fight. AI demanded of a boy that was in an empty training room, swinging around an arctic blue-colored sword, pausing in his motions as he turned his attention to her. The boy was one she has seen within the Butterfly Estate, helping out the Slayers who had been injured whenever he was around to do so. The boy stood at 5 feet tall with a pale yet healthy skin complexion and possessed a pretty face with large, wide eyes that are framed by an array of long eyelashes, their irises a dark to soft pale green, thin eyebrows and what could be a small, well-mannered mouth. His thick, black hair reaches just past his shoulders, fading into blue at the tips with 2 braided bangs hanging from the sides of his head and uneven fringe that falls just above his eyes, puffing out before curving and thinning towards his forehead. As for his clothes, the was wearing the clothes that all the injured people wear when they are brought in, except that his version was colored the same type of blue as his sword and he was wearing a white-colored cloak. Why do you want to fight? The boy asked, briefly taking a moment to wipe the sweat from his head while AI only glared at him. Because you're the only one that can actually fight right now and I want to train. AI says, causing the boy to shrug a bit before heading over to a door. Alright, just let me grab Kani-san before we start so she makes sure we don't go too far. The boy says, making AI sigh but nods her head in acceptance to the request. With that, she was thankful she only needed to wait for a few minutes before the boy returned with the crippled woman, though her body instantly tensed in her presence. AI had seen many animals that hurt their hind legs yet were still terrifyingly strong, especially in her early years, and this woman kept on reminding her of such animals. Ah, so you're the one who wanted to spar with Inasu-kun? AI-chan. Kana asks her with a gentle smile, causing AI to nod her head. Is that okay, Kani-san? Inaku asks her with a raised eyebrow, causing the injured, yet dangerous woman to chuckle a bit. I see no reason why it shouldn't. I'll be sure to interfere if one of you look like you will be injured badly, she assured him, making AI grin as she drew both of her swords as her opponent held his sword with both hands and in front of him. Nature breathing. First form, the wind sword. Taking the offensive, AI charged forward at her opponent before zooming around the area, sheathing a single sword while her opponent tries to follow her. Suddenly though, Inaku placed an open palm on the ground while AI charged from behind and began to unsheath her second sword and swing at him when ice breathing, fourth form, freezing clouds, he declares before spinning around performing a single wide slashing attack, forcing AI to jump back just before she was hit. Second form, cherry blossom dance. AI declares to herself, charging forward with a fair amount of speed while her opponent began to prepare a counter, when suddenly, Kana appeared between them both, and before AI could even hope to react, she felt her swords get knocked out of her hands with ease, sending her crashing onto the ground while she distantly heard a thud that was likely from Inaku also being knocked back. Now, I think that is enough, Kana says with a smile, before doubling over for a moment and using her sword to keep herself up, coughing a bit, and AI was a little surprised when she noticed a tiny amount of blood on the woman's hand, Kani-san, hey, take it easy, Inaku says with worry and even guilt in his voice as he quickly reached the woman and supported her with his body, causing Kana to take in a few steady breaths before looking at the boy with a small and gentle smile. Thank you for the concern, Inosuke-kun, but you don't need to worry about me, she assured him, with Ai taking the opportunity to pick up her swords and sheathe them once more before looking at the two in confusion. Why did you interfere? There is no way that the match could have gotten that deadly so soon, Ai asks, restraining herself from actually demanding an answer considering Kana's state. Physically, you're right, but my breathing style is dangerous against other demon slayers without. Wait, you can't use total concentration breathing constant, the boy asks, as if he pieced together why something just happened, leaving Ai confused. The hell is that? Are you referring to what I do when fighting? Ai inquires, to which Kana began to chuckle a little behind her hand. It seems like we have a lot to catch you up on, Ai-chan. Follow us so we can explain breathing techniques more to you and make you stronger, she says, to which Ai merely shrugged and followed the two out of the empty room. Anything to make herself stronger after all. Muakairo's perspective. Time skip, 3 days. Location, Water Estate. So, why did the both of you want us to come here? Nezuko asks both Muakairo and Jiyu, making the Mist Hashira smile a bit as he decided to answer. While the both of you have learnt to use the main forms of both water and mist breathing and made some progress with your family's Hinakami Kagura, you are going to need every advantage you can get. So, we are going to tech you both the new techniques we made, Muakairo explained, catching the attention of both Kamado sisters as Hanako leaned forward with an eager grin. To explain things, the new technique I made is the 11th form of water breathing, which I have named Dead Calm. With it, you are to cease all body movements and enters a state of complete tranquility, deflecting, blocking, and cutting any incoming attacks with imperceptible speed with their blade. This even helps against attacks that you normally can't react to, though fast and numerous attacks will overwhelm you if your body can't keep up. Jiyu explained the technique to Nezuko, even slowly demonstrating the opening stances of For Dead Calm. After allowing Jiyu to go through his demonstration, Muakairo turned his attention to Hanako. My technique is the 7th form of mist breathing, obscuring clouds. With it, you will need to drastically change the tempo of your movement to disorient your opponent and even create a powerful mist that is almost impossible for an opponent to see through. However, this does mean that if your enemy finds where you are hiding, you will appear slow to them while being faster than they can track if you are hidden from their sight. Muakairo explained, showing her how he himself performed the ability within a few slow stances that he knew the youngest surviving Kamado can easily track while still being fluid in his movements. That is really cool. We'll make you both proud, Hanako promised the two Hashira, causing them to smile a bit. Is there anything you would like to ask before we begin your practice sessions? Jiyu asks, to which Muakairo noticed Nezuko was in thought before she lifted her head to look at them. Yeah, actually, which form do you think is better when pitted against each other? They both seem to be perfect counters to each other after all, Nezuko points out, taking Muakairo a minute to think it over, and honestly, Nezuko was right. Never thought about that. Want to test it out, Nai-chan? Muakairo asks, making Jiyu shrug his shoulders. Might as well. Besides, seeing the techniques in action might help out in you both understanding the forms than simply explaining the principles behind them, Jiyu says, grabbing his sword and preparing himself while Muakairo did the same, noticing how the Kamado sisters leaned forward in anticipation out of the corner of his eye. 7th form, obscuring clouds, Muakairo declares within his mind, mist forming all around him before charging forward, seeing Jiyu turn around and clash their Nichiren blades together as he used Dead Calm. However, both Hashiras stepped away from each other in shock as something odd happened to their weapons, with even the concerned sounds of the Kamado siblings being distant on his ears as Muakairo looked at his trusted weapon. For Muakairo and Jiyu's white and blue-colored Nichiren swords turned into a bright red color. Fan-made breathing styles. Swap. Inosuke equals ice breathing. Ice breathing forms. First form, sheer cold equals the user creates ice particles while performing a singular upward slash that freezes the hit area of the target for a short time. Second form, frozen prison equals the user performs up to 5 slashes on a demon target that creates an ice cube, successfully trapping the demon within until the prison is either destroyed to decapitate the demon or the demon overpowers the ice. Third form, barren hanging garden equals the user delivers up to 2 quick slashes on a target that coats them in frost, restricting the opponent's movements for a short time while potentially blinding those within close range due to the mist made by the freezing cold. but the stronger the enemy, the quicker the frost breaks. Fourth form, freezing clouds equals the user delivers a single wide slashing attack that scatters ice particles, making the ground more slippery due to a coating of ice and making it harder for the hit target to breathe properly. Fifth form, wintry icicles equals the user performs a downward slash while coating their blade in a strong layer of ice, making the attack stronger than a regular swing. Swap, AI equals nature breathing. Nature breathing forms. First form, the wind sword equals the user sheathes at least a single blade and dashes around the area to confuse the enemy, using a spare blade to ward off potential attacks and drawing out the sheathed blade for a single devastating attack. Second form, cherry blossom dance equals the user charges forward with both blades and effectively dances around their opponent, evading many attacks with little issue while striking out with minor attacks to wear down an opponent and create an opening for decapitation. Third form, bamboo basket equals the user performs a 360 spin before backflipping and either striking up or down, allowing the user to move fast enough to create a brief dome within the area and attack from all sides. Fourth form, bear claw equals the user slashes out with both swords in a manner that is reminiscent of a wild bear, allowing the practitioner to strike up to 2 times with a single swing. Fifth form, legendary bite equals the user swings both blades at a target's neck in a way that is reminiscent of a mythological dragon biting down on its prey, using the serrated edges to dig into flesh more easily. Sixth form, nature's hierarchy equals the user controls the breathing and heartbeat to a level that most are unable to reach, allowing them to sense the immediate area for a few moments and alerts them to the presence of any creature that is around their level of strength and above. Tanjiro's perspective. Time skip, 4 days. Location, Water Estate. Murder. He was going to murder that filth. How dare that glasses-wearing scum put those revolting abominations on his imautos. They were far too young to wear such things. But first, Tanjiro lets out a disapproving and warning growl behind his muzzle as he watched Nezuko cover her chest in an outfit that revealed way too much skin. Those abominations for clothing didn't even cover Nezuko's chest, and the loose clothing around her waist barely hid the upper half of her legs. Nai-chan, I know that you don't like this and I don't either. I'm sure that the man simply made a mistake giving me these, Hanako says with a disturbed tone to her sounds, though the older brother was able to smell the hope for this being true in her scent. Probably for the best that his baby sister thought that Scum giving her those disgusting clothes was a mistake. But that didn't mean he wasn't going to give Scum glasses hell. Besides, I'm sure we can have that man get us better measured clothes. After all, he might just be the one delivering them and didn't know the clothes are like this, Nezuko says to Tanjiro, who understood enough of her sounds to get what she was saying. The problem was that she couldn't smell the barely contained perverted glee of that Scum as he handed her and Hanako the clothes, coming from the next room, and the excitement he was feeling when he passed over those abominations. Nezuko, Hanako, what is taking you both so long? The voice of Oji-chan sounds out from beyond the door behind the eldest Kamado, drawing his attention as he hoped that the man would back him up here. Tanjiro isn't letting us out, Nezuko calls out, to which he could smell the confusion from beyond the door as it opened, and in came Oji-chan, causing Tanjiro to whimper slightly in guilt as he saw his family member bound to the moving chair. Tanjiro, just let them. What the? The man began to make sounds that appeared to be an order, but he froze and whispered in a silent and cold fury that practically boomed within the room as he saw what Nezuko was wearing, and the clothes that were given to Hanako as a glare formed on his kind face. Sensei, is something wrong? Nezuko asks, a bit taken aback by the usually composed man, with Hanako also hiding behind Tanjiro in shock instinctively. You all stay here and change into your regular clothes, Nezuko. I'll be back in a minute, Oji-chan says with a scent of pure rage before closing the door. After a moment, Nezuko seemed to move away to follow whatever orders their family gave, but Tanjiro didn't notice. Why? Because the little demon was focusing on the quickly angered sense of both Atauro and Oni-chan become enraged and head in the direction of Scum Glasses, who became very nervous and scared. He just wished that he could headbutt the man, but maybe later on he could. Wait, Tanjiro hums in confusion as he smells a very soft and comforting approaching half-half's place. It reminded him of Odo-san. Why can I smell things that others can't? The little Tanjiro questions his father, who looked down at him with a gentle smile. To be honest, Tanjiro, I do not know how you came across this gift. However, it is something that is truly incredible and unique and can help out so many people as it gets stronger. Tanjiro tells his son before picking him up with ease despite his sickly body, and brought the young Kamado into a hug and rubbed his head gently, with Kai watching this with her youngest child sleeping in her arms. Tanjiro was snapped out of his memories as he saw both of his Imados looking at him in worry and felt something wet going down his cheeks. The little demon cries out, his face feeling hot as he launched himself forward and tightly hugged both of his baby sisters, the wet feeling going down his cheeks only intensifying more as it became hard to breathe. Eventually, though, he passed and fell asleep within his sister's embrace, subconsciously shrinking down into his tiny state to get comfortable and not inconvenience them. Urokodaki's perspective. Location: Water Estate main room. If I find out that you tried giving either of those sisters that outfit again, I will make facing a starving Musen Kibutsuji himself look like a mercy. Urokodaki growled to the glasses-wearing Kakashi member before him, who was whimpering in terror at facing the wrath and malice of not only the former Water Hashira, but the current one and the Mist Hashira as well. Now scram, Muakairo ordered of the man, causing his to nod his head so fast that the retired demon slayer was convinced it would go flying at any moment before running straight at the door and bursting through it, quickly disappearing from the view of the odd family. I knew that man was bad with how perverted he is, but I never thought he would give that uniform to a 12-year-old. Jiyu mutters in annoyance before he suddenly froze as if he realized a terrifying fact and looked a bit guilty for something. Something wrong, Jiyu? Urokodaki questions, making the current Water Hashira sigh as he rubbed his head as if to fight off a headache. Let's just say I might have misunderstood something and will need to apologize later, he explained a little uneasily, to which Muakairo tilted his head behind his older brother and widened his eyes in surprise. Oyakata-sama is coming, Muakairo tells them, drawing the attention of both Urokodaki and Jiyu as they saw the current leader of the corps approach the estate, with Jiyu letting him and two of his children inside. "Ah, thank you, Tomioka-kun. Sorry if I am intruding on anything private, but I think now would be the best time to meet the little ones," the Yubaeshiki requests, to which Muakairo and Jiyu nod their heads. "Of course, Oyakata-sama. Just give us a minute to get the girls and their brother," Muakairo says, causing the blind man to nod his head in approval as both Muakairo and Jiyu left to check on the siblings. "It has been some time since I last saw you in person, Kaguya-sama. I'm still sorry for the hardships you had to face at such a young age," Urokodaki tells the man who he knew from back when he was simply a child, making the man chuckle. "I thank you, Urokodaki-san, but I have been able to manage throughout the years. However, I would like you to meet my children. This here is my son and daughter, Kiria and Kanata, respectively." The head of the corps introduces his children, who merely bow their heads in greeting to the crippled man, who returns the gesture. "I suppose you wish to see Tanjiro for yourself then?" Urokodaki questions, deciding to get to the point. "Indeed. However, I trust your judgment, alongside Jiyu's and Muakairo's, so I doubt that this will take long to begin with," Kaguya explained, making the retired demon slayer relax a little as he knew Tanjiro wouldn't hurt the man or his children. How he will react to them on the other hand is something else entirely, if what Nezuko told him about her wild friend's encounter with the friendly demon is anything to go by. Nezuko's perspective. "So, who is this person you want us to meet, Nai-chan?" Nezuko asked Jiyu as they walked down a hallway to the main room of the estate, holding a tiny Tanjiro in his arms, her older brother sleeping peacefully within the composed man's arms and even nuzzling his head into the older man's chest. "A man that will be able to help us when Tanjiro's existence is exposed to the rest of the corps. After all, some members are consumed by hate when it comes to demons," Jiyu explained, making Hanako beam at the news that they have someone else that is on their side. "Really? I can't wait to meet them then," the youngest sibling says with a large smile, earning a smirk from Muakairo. "You'll like him. However, he is in charge of the entire corps, so be sure to show respect to the man," the young boy assured Hanako before cautioning both sisters, making Nezuko nod her head. "Of course, Muakairo," the eldest daughter assured him, causing one of her little brother figure to nod his head. Quickly though, they entered the main room and found a man sitting down on the floor with a peaceful smile as he talked with Oji-chan, though she was taken aback when she saw the two children watching over the final selection. Looking over the man who she can assume was the leader of the corps, she made note of his light skin and black shoulder-length hair. She was also shocked and quickly became concerned when she saw that most of his face was purple, with the skin even looking like it was actually rotting. As for his eyes, they were a milky white that Nezuko has seen a few times back at her old village, telling her that the man has lost his sight, likely as a result of whatever illness was affecting him. As for his clothes, he was wearing a black kimono over a white with a long white haori with a pink and purple flame-like pattern that starts from the fury in the calves and the fuki in the hem. Ah, I can assume that you have returned with the children, Jiyu-kun, Muakairo-kun. The man addresses her two brothers, making them both nod before sitting down and bowing before the man, with Hanako and Nezuko sitting down as well. Indeed, Oyakata-sama, the one on my right is Nezuko while her sister, who is right next to her, is Hanako. Their brother is currently sleeping in my arms at the moment, Jiyu told the man, who continued to smile gently before turning his blind gaze towards Nezuko, who was a bit taken aback when she felt a sudden sense of safety overcome her. Something she hadn't felt since Dad. Wait, is that why Tanjiro was crying earlier? Because he sensed this man and was reminded of Odo-san. Nezuko thought, feeling her intuition calm down but seemingly acting up slightly as if to confirm her question to herself. I see. It is a pleasure to meet you both, my children. I'm sorry it couldn't be during circumstances where everything is fine though. The leader of the corps addresses them both, his voice taking on a slightly sad tone at the end. And despite the calming aura of the man before them, the panic and worry that quickly grew within Nezuko and Hanako could not be stopped. You're not going to hurt Nai-chan, are you? Hanako's voice questioned, sounding desperate and weak, even pleading a little bit. The question though seemed to briefly surprise the leader though. No, you do not need to worry about that. Jiyu, Muakairo and even Sakonji-san here have all given me reports on your brother ever since he awakened, including the message that Jiyu sent when he first found you three. He explained, causing the sisters to calm down slightly but were still a bit tense. Rather, I came here to see what your brother is like for myself. Afterwards, I would like to make a request of you that might be tough, but may be needed. He tells them, but before any of them could say or do a thing, they all heard a muffled groan. Turning their heads in the direction of the sound, they saw tiny Tanjiro rubbing his eyes in a half-asleep manner, and made a noise that was likely a yawn, but ended up muffled due to the muzzle in his mouth. Looking around, he focuses on the children from the final selection, resulting in him getting off of Jiyu's lap and growing to the size that he normally would be at before walking toward the children before stopping right in front of them. After a moment of silence that likely felt a little uncomfortable for the kids, Tanjiro lifted up his hands and started to pat both of their heads, sitting down in front of them and smiling as he did so. What is your brother doing, Kamado-san? The black-haired child asked, making Nezuko smile a bit as she watched this happen. Oniai-chan always liked helping and looking after people. He probably just wants to give affection in general to you as well, Nezuko explained, to which the white-haired sibling actually smiles and reaches out and gives Tanjiro a hug. Thank you for the kindness, Tanjiro-san, the child says, getting a hum of acknowledgement from her brother as he gently returns the hug, with the black-haired sibling watching this with a smile, and after a moment of consideration, joins the hug as well. I am pleased to see that my assumptions on him were correct. Now then, for the request for you both, and I must ask you to listen to the whole thing before speaking. The leader of the corps says in amusement and a bit of joy, looking in the direction of his children for a moment before looking in the direction of the Kamado sisters. I believe that your brother may be of great help in stopping Kibutsuji and his demons once and for all. I would like to request that you take him with you on your missions with your future squad. The man asks, taking not only Nezuko and Hanako aback, but even Jiyu, Muakairo and Yurikodaki. Sorry Oyakata-sama, but I must ask why. Jiyu asks, feeling a bit uncomfortable with allowing Tanjiro to go out, though he might have an idea as to why. None of them noticed Tanjiro looking at the leader of the corps with a sad look once he focused on him. Simply put, I would like Tanjiro's aid in our battle against Kibutsuji, but this is also to protect him. If any demon slayer were to find him right now, they would kill him without a moment of hesitation, and most would still try, even if they know he hasn't consumed a single person. However, with him going out on missions, protecting humans from other demons, and earning the trust of a team, a strong defense can be made to allow him to live. If you accept, I will notify the slayers on your soon-to-be squad that he is not to be killed unless he attacks a human outside of self-defense or eats them. That way they will accept the order and feel comfortable in doing so. Oyakata-sama explained, making Nezuko lower her head in thought. Her first instinct was to deny the request, as her brother has always pushed himself so much to keep their family safe, and he deserved the rest, for her to take up that responsibility for once. But the man before her was right. So many demon slayers would kill her brother no matter what, and being left here would leave him vulnerable, and Yurikodaki's home was no longer safe. They all heard Tanjiro's muffled, yet gentle demand for attention, pulling on the sleeve of the leader of demon slayers and held up medicine to him, eyes shining with hope. "Oh, Kiria, what is our friend doing?" the sickly man questioned, causing the black-haired child to smile and speak. "Tanjiro is presenting medicine to you, father. It is likely he wants to help make you feel better," Kiria tells him, causing Uekata-sama to widen his eyes in shock before smiling gently at the boy standing right in front of him. "Thank you for the concern, Tanjiro-kun, but I currently do not need medicine. I also have some back home to help me," the man tells the young demon, reaching out his hand and softly rubbing his head. Though, the reaction from the eldest Kamado was one that none of them expected. Why? Because he began to cry, just like he had when Oji-chan left the Kamado siblings with the order for the older sister to put on her normal clothes again. Nai-chan, what's wrong?" Hanako asks in a panic, though everyone was left even more shocked as Tanjiro reverted down to the size of his 5-year-old self before grabbing a hold of the Uekata-samas and placing his head on the man's chest, unable to stop himself from crying. Quickly realizing that this was going to be the case, the leader of the corps placed a comforting hand on the tiny demon's back and pet his head softly until he eventually fell asleep. "And sorry about that, Uekata-sama. I have no idea why Tanjiro acted that way." Muakairo apologized on behalf of Tanjiro, with Nezuko and Hanako bowed their heads in apology due to how their brother acted while said brother was resting peacefully in the arms of Urakodaki. "It is fine, my children. I have a feeling that it was something the young boy needed anyways. I shall, however, take my leave. I look forward to seeing how these Sugukos of yours shall grow." Jiyu and Muakairo, the leader says with a respectful bow before leaving with both of his children by his side. "Suguko, what is that?" Hanako questions the more experienced slayers, making Jiyu freeze up in horror as his blood ran cold. Nezuko also noticed how Muakairo froze up for such a brief moment. She was sure she simply imagined it. "What?" Urakodaki asks, turning to look at both Muakairo and Jiyu with a glare that was terrifying despite the elderly man's kind face, to which Muakairo shrugged his shoulders with a curious look as well. "Muakairo, take Tanjiro and the girls for a minute. I need to talk with Jiyu for a moment," Urakodaki orders, to which the young teen took the sleeping Tanjiro in his arms while having both Nezuko and Hanako follow him into their room to play with a deck of cards. Though, Nezuko for some reason felt really bad for her fellow water breather being left alone with Oji-chan. Hanako's perspective. Time skip, 3 days. Location, Water Estate. Hanako heard her brother try to speak behind his muzzle, causing her to turn around and face Tanjiro as he stared in the direction of the front door. "Is something wrong, Nai-chan?" she asked her older brother, who shook his head but still appeared to be very confused. Taking a few sniffs, Hanako's enhanced smell was able to pinpoint someone she didn't recognize approaching the estate, causing the youngest of the surviving Kamado family to panic a bit. "Tanjiro, hide under this blanket real quick, okay?" Hanako asks of him, to which her brother finally turned to face her and comply with the request, shrinking down to the size of a child to fully conceal himself under a blanket while Nezuko approached curiously. "Is something wrong, Hanako? And why is Tanjiro hiding under that blanket?" she asked while drying her hands after cleaning the kitchen. "Me and Nai-chan can smell someone coming here and it seems like they aren't going to change routes," Hanako says in a bit of a panic, causing her sister to narrow her eyes a bit before nodding her head. "In that case, stay close. Hopefully it's simply someone delivering a mission to either Jiyu or Muakairo, and we can pass it on," she says, causing the younger girl to nod her head in acceptance before following her sister, opening the door to see the person who their brother smelled approaching. Looking him over, Hanako saw that they appeared to be slightly taller than her brother's normal height. Looking over what they were wearing, she made note of their sunflower-patterned haori and a large, woven hat with hanging floral wind chimes while carrying a long wooden box strapped to his back. However, because the hat was tilted down, she was unable to face or even make note of a potential hair color for them. Quickly though, the person stopped right in front of both sister and began to speak. "I am called Haginzuka. I am the one who forged the weapons of Nezuko and Hanako Kamado." The man introduced himself before explained, taking both sisters aback for a moment before Hanako smiles. "Oh, well, it's nice to meet you, Haginzuka-san. I'm Hanako Kamado, and this is my older sister, Nezuko," Hanako says, even bowing near the end as she spoke while her sister nodded her head with a bit more of a tense smile than her little sister. "Please, come inside then. Urakodaki and the rest are inside as well." Nezuko tries to invite them in, only to trail off in confusion as the man ignored them in favor of grabbing the box on his back and placed it on the ground as he kneeled down to open it. "Don't worry, this behavior is normal of a swordsmith, so let him take his time." They heard the voice of Jiyu speak, causing the sisters to turn around and see the more experienced demon slayer approach them with a small smile. These are Nichiren blades. I personally forged these swords for you with the iron sand and ore that are the materials for a Nichiren sword are gathered at the mountain closest to the sun. The scarlet iron sand and scarlet ore both absorb sunlight. This is because the sun shines all year on Mount Yoko, as it is never cloudy and rain never falls there. The man explained, to which Hanako felt a bit off just letting the man kneel on the ground outside of the estate. They all heard the familiar muffled sounds of her brother, though suffice to say, Hanako actually jumped back in shock and screamed a bit in surprise while Nezuko turned around in shock as she addressed him and Jiyu merely blinked quickly as a sign of his surprise, as Tanjiro seemingly appeared out of nowhere with how quiet he was, tilting his head as he watched the man on the floor curiously. However, this appeared to get the attention of Hagenzuka as he lifted his head up to reveal a Hayatoko mask. Hanako thought in surprise as she saw a wooden mask that was colored red, carved with puffed-out cheeks and elongated lips as if it was blowing out wind or whistling. She also glimpsed a white cloth with black spots wrapped around his head right under his woven hat. "Oh, this is your brother. Hahaha, what luck. It appears that he is a child of brightness, even with the pink eyes," the man says happily, leaning forward to look at Tanjiro more closely, and while Hanako knew her brother likely had no clue what Hagenzuka was talking about, his closed-eye smile showed that he was happy to raise the spirits of anyone, even if he didn't know how he did so. "Wait, what do you mean by a child of brightness?" Nezuko questions, to which they all turned around as they heard Mukairo wheeling Urakodaki over to the group. It is believed that a family that works with fire is blessed when a child is born with hair and eyes like Tanjiro's, though usually these children have red eyes instead of your brother's pink. But according to the both of you, he did have red eyes as a human, so I would say it still counts. Urakodaki answers Nezuko's question, causing the eldest daughter to nod her head with a smile. "Come on, I heard some rumors that it might rain later on today, so we should talk inside," Mukairo says, making everyone nod their heads as they head back in and sat around the table in the living room as Hagenzuka put down the box he was carrying on the table and pushed it towards the sisters, with Tanjiro putting Hanako on his lap. "Go on, draw your swords," the swordsmith urged the sisters excitedly, even waving his hands up and down in a manner as if to push them into doing so without actually touching them. Doing so, Hanako drew out her weapon as her brother watched curiously, something that Jiyu noticed while the youngest surviving Kamato was making note of how currently looked like the ones of her older brothers, except that the blade itself was a silvery gray, and the handguard was shaped with a sun design. Looking over, she saw that her Nechin's own sword was also the same, except that the handguard was designed as a black ring connected to its core by lines with a border of the same color that honestly resembled wagon wheel in appearance. A Nichiren sword is the same type of weapon that Mukairo and Dad have. Depending on the breathing style affinity of an individual, they shall change color to match their owner, earning them the secondary name of color-changing katana. Jiyu decided to tell the young demon, who still appeared to be confused but looked at the swords with childlike wonder now, causing Hanako to giggle, missing the glint in her sister's eye as she looked at both Jiyu and Oji-chan, resulting in the experienced demon slayer to look away in embarrassment. Focusing on her sword now though, Hanako was left in a state of wonder as she saw the silvery gray blade turn into a pure white like Mukairo's sword before a few mist cloud marking appeared along the blade in a pitch black color. Turning around to look at Nezuko, she saw that her sister's blade began to change into a powerful deep blue completely, before a black-colored vine-like pattern began to spread upward toward the tip of the weapon, making the black cover most of the blade while the blue still stood out as the most dominant and clear color of the sword. White and blue. Though I am confused by the black, Mukairo confesses, smiling at the color of Hanako's sword before tilting his head curiously. Tanjiro made a muffled noise of pure awe, his eyes shining with so much admiration that Hanako honestly thought that stars were actually floating around her brother for a moment. Are the dual colors bad or something? Nezuko asks, a worry that Hanako couldn't detect in her voice before calming down when Urakodaki shook his head. No, it isn't odd for the color of a Nichiren sword to appear as either a pattern on the blade or for the edge to take on a different color while the inside of the blade becomes black in color. But for the Nichiren blade to completely change its color and gain black patterns suggests that you can make use of a second breathing style with great proficiency, most likely whatever the Hinokami Kagura truly is. However, the colors do suggest that water and mist breathing is your true affinity while your family's dance should mainly be an add-on for now. Yurikodaki explained, looking over both weapons critically. That was until Hagenzuka grabbed his head with both hands, threw his head back in dismay and began to scream in annoyed fury, making Tanjiro flinch before covering his ears to block out the sound. "NNNOOO, I thought that I would finally get to see a crimson blade this time," the swordsmith yelled as if all his hopes were just erased right in front of him. However, her brother appeared become a bit sad at the words before looking at Mukairo and Jiyu. Tanjiro spoke through his muzzle, trying to communicate something to the swordsmith as he pointed at the two members of their forged family. And while it took a moment, Hanako figured out what her brother was attempting to communicate. "Oh yeah, don't your swords turn bright red?" Hanako asks innocently, causing Hagenzuka to freeze up, as if he was suddenly frozen in time before his aura took on a terrifying shift and looked at the two demon slayer. Honestly, Hanako was greatly unnerved by the presence of the man now, and she had a feeling she would be petrified if the swordsmith's mask wasn't on. Because of this, she made a mental note to not get on his bad side in the future. "The both of you actually have a crimson blade on you. They turned into a crimson Nichiren sword," he asked slowly, as if not believing his own words. Having the attention of the man on them now, Mukairo actually glared at Tanjiro in an annoyed manner without any negative feelings before sighing. "Might as well get this over with," the mist user says as he pulled out his Nichiren sword, which changed into the bright red color thanks to a practice spar with Jiyu, as the water user also did so, though his face gave away nothing as he did so. Seeing both colored swords for himself, the swordsmith almost fell backwards in shock, before jumping up into the air with a victorious yell. "YESSS, this is the best day of my life. Not as good as one of my blades turning crimson, but to be able to see one in person. Not even my bosses have seen one of these. Hahaha, it seems like you Kamados aren't half bad. If you ever need anything, then send me a crow," he says before jumping up and begin to leave, but stopped before turning to look at the siblings. "Still though, you better not break those. I worked hard to make them and I won't forgive you for making light of my work," Hagenzuka warns without out too much malice before leaving. Not long after, Nezuko's crow flew in through an open window with Yukogi very close behind, with the sparrow landing gently on her shoulder while the crow flapped its wings and stared Nezuko down directly. Kamado Nezuko, Kamado Hanako, hurry and go to the northwest town. Demon, this is your first assignment," the crow demanded in a very bossy and honestly, a bit of an arrogant tone, making Tanjiro look at the bird and growl at it, making the proud flyer flinch before landing and calming down. Without the crow yelling now, Hanako looked at her sparrow friend, who began to tweet in a manner that she understood. She really needed to get Tanjiro something for teaching her to understand a few animals when she got lost in the woods 4 years ago. Lots of young girls are disappearing within the northwest town every night. It is likely demons are behind this, so you need to get there as fast as possible and help, Yukogi explained in a calmer, though panicked tone that didn't set Tanjiro off. However, the demon was still looking at Nezuko's crow with a harsh glare that made the flying animal repeat what the sparrow said in a respectful manner to Nezuko. "Your squad has already been informed of the mission and have also been requested to head to the location. Meet up with them in town and save those people," the crow adds in at the end, making the sisters nod while Yurikodaki smiled. "Go upstairs and put on your uniforms. I'll have something ready for you when you come back down," Yurikodaki tells them, to which the sisters follow the order with a smile. This was it. The true journey to help Tanjiro to turning her brother back into a human has officially began. Nezuko's perspective. Location, Water Estate. "Before the both of you go, you should take this with you," Yurikodaki says as both Nezuko and Hanako came down in their new uniforms, with Nezuko's uniform being colored with a bright orange tint while Hanako's possessed a dark pink shade. However, unlike the disgusting and perverted version that the glasses pervert was trying to give her, and Hanako, Nezuko's now had a pair of pants that completely covered her legs, and while Hanako's still kept a skirt, this one reached down to cover her knees and there was a pair of shorts underneath. Something that wasn't a part of their respective uniforms though was a green and black checkered patterned Hanahaba obi with an orange threaded obijime, and a pink obij was wrapped around Nezuko's waist while Hanako was wearing a scarf with a blue and black checkered pattern on it. Looking at it briefly, Nezuko couldn't stop the mental image of Takeo overtaking her sister for a moment, knowing her sister handcrafted the scarf in the memory of their brother. Why do you have a box with you, Oji-chan? Hanako asks him, causing the elderly to smile as he passed the large rectangular-shaped box to Nezuko, with Tanjiro walking over to and sniffing it for a moment before tilting his head. That box was designed with the purpose of allowing Tanjiro to travel with you during the day. Me and Muakairo were able to craft it from an incredibly light wood called Kirakumo cedar. We then coated it with rock lacquer to harden the exterior. It is also stronger than a normal box, so even attacks from most demons will be incapable of breaking it. Urakodaki explained to the girls, with Jiyu passing both Hanako and Nezuko a pair Haori that the girls put on. In the case of Nezuko, hers was a light pink-colored one with a hemp leaf pattern, the edges of the sleeves and collar being a paler pink than the rest of the Haori. Hanako's though was designed in almost the same way as the kimono they had from the final selection, being a blue, cloud-patterned Samu-styled Haori. Those Haoris are made from the same material as the core uniforms themselves, so it will be too durable for lesser demons to cut into or tear apart. It will allow you both easier breathing when compared to normal clothing while being able to resist lots of water and fire without much damage, he explained to the girls, making Nezuko mentally thank that she actually kept the first uniforms the sisters were given. She certainly had every intention of kicking the perverted bastard if she ever saw him again in the future. But that meant that the shorts Nezuko made from the material of those clothes were just as durable as the rest of her sister clothes. Good. Anyone who purposely tries looking up my sister's skirt won't see what they are looking for, and they won't be leaving without a few broken bones, she thought to herself. While she didn't inherit her mother's hard head like Tanjiro did, but according to Kai, she did inherit the powerful kicks of her grandmother. Apparently their family on her side of things always had at least one part of their bodies that was supernaturally strong, evidenced by her mother scaring away a wild charging boar by headbutting it. You should also reveal Tanjiro to the rest of your squad when you meet them. Better to make it clear he is on your side and has permission to live with the support of your caretakers rather than hiding his existence and killing him by accident, Muakairo advises them, and while Nezuko was uncomfortable with the idea, she knew the misuser had a point. Okay Muakairo, I look forward to working with both you and Jiyu when you recover, Hanako says with a smile, causing Urakodaki to smile as he placed a hand on her head, with Tanjiro walking over to them in curiosity. I'm sure that you will have some stories to tell me when that happens. For now, enjoy your time with your new squad and be careful, Urakodaki tells her, making the young girl nod her head while Nezuko picked up the box and placed it down in front of Tanjiro. Okay Oniai-chan, I need you to shrink down into here. It'll be just like when you rested inside the basket back at Urakodaki's, she explained, to which her brother's eyes seemed to shine in excitement as he registered the comparison, shrinking down to a size that will let him fit perfectly inside the box. After sitting down inside it and adjusting his Haori to act as a blanket, the eldest daughter of the Kamado family watched fondly as her baby-sized brother fell asleep. Rest well Tanjiro. I promise that we'll never rest until you're human again, Nezuko vowed quietly before closing the box and gently putting it on her back. Alright Hanako, are you ready? Nezuko asks, to which her sister nods her head before grabbing the warding mask made by Urakodaki and putting it on, which surprised the man. You are going to keep wearing it? Urakodaki asks in surprise but with a bit of fondness to his voice, to which Nezuko couldn't stop herself from flinching a bit, and being thankful that none of her family noticed. While the sisters did tell him about the hand demon, neither had the heart to tell their grandfather figure the truth behind that demon killing all of his previous students and that the masks marked them as his students. While he certainly deserved to know, Oji-chan didn't deserve the heartbreak and pain that would have followed. Yeah, it will make it feel like you are with use while out there. Plus, I just like it, Hanako says a bit shyly at the end, causing the elderly man to smile gently before rubbing the head of the little girl. Don't worry about it. Just make sure that the both of you stay alive and look after one another, he asks, making Nezuko nod her head with a smile as she also grabbed her own mask, though she attached it onto the belt of her uniform and allowed it to hang there instead of putting it on. We will. Thank you for everything Oji-chan, Nezuko says before hugging her mentor, who chuckled as he returned a hug of his own before they quickly let each other go. Remember, while coming across these kinds of demons might not be too common, be careful around demons that may have access to a blood demon art, Muakairo cautions them, making Hanako widen her eyes as she looked at Jiyu. Wait, didn't you say that Nai-chan had some kind of light beam? Is that a blood demon art? Hanako inquires, catching Nezuko's curiosity as well as she looked to her fellow water-breathing user, who nods his head in response. Indeed, a blood demon art is a unique power possessed by strong demons that have consumed many people. How the power of a blood demon art works varies between the different demons. Some have a destructive ability like Tanjiro's, others can mess with your senses and even affect the environment, making them incredibly unpredictable and dangerous. You also can't rely on their appearance for hints, as while a few do have characteristics that suggest they have access to such a power, such a thing is rare. The older demon slayer explained to them, making both of the sisters nod their heads. Taking the warning to heart, the sisters now began there to meet up with their new squad. Location, unnamed forest. Time skip, nighttime. Do you smell anything, Hanako? Nezuko asks curiously, to which her little sister shook her head negatively as the sisters entered a forest, and in doing so, is cut off from the final rays of the sun in the sky. Nope. From what I can tell, we might even be able to set up camp for a few hours before a demon gets close. Hanako estimates, with Nezuko putting down the box and opening it, seeing Tanjiro slowly wake up and cutely yawn behind his muzzle and rubbing his eyes. Hey Onii-chan. It's safe to come out now, though be careful, Nezuko tells him, causing her demonic brother to nod his head as he crawled out of the box, his clothes still staying on him despite the size difference before growing back into his regular size. Once he did so, he grabbed his Haori and put it back on. Tanjiro says with a happy noise that was muffled behind his muzzle, walking over and hugging Hanako, and reaching out his arm to pat Nezuko on the head, making Hanako giggle happily. Thanks Nai-chan. Sorry if it was a bumpy ride in there earlier. The youngest sibling tells their brother, with Nezuko chuckling a bit. Earlier in the journey, Hanako had convinced Nezuko to let her carry their brother. However, the added weight on her back caused the youngest of the surviving Kamados to stumble and trip for a good anytime she tried hopping around until Nezuko eventually took the box back. Come on, we should continue for a bit longer since the town is nearby, and we can rest close by. Tanjiro, make sure you. Is something wrong, Onii-chan? The eldest daughter of the Kamado family was about to order when she noticed her brother looking up at a tree in confusion before his eyes snapped open, suddenly very aware and worried as he ran past his sisters. Wah, Nai-chan, wait up. Hanako calls out as the sisters rush after their brother, unaware of a figure dropping down onto a sturdy branch and exiting from the hidden cover of the leaves and in the tree. So, those are the sisters and brother. Well, let's see if they are actually going to be worthy of my time. Though I am impressed the little demons seem to notice me, the figure says with an amused tone before jumping on top of the trees to continue to observe the siblings from a distance. Tanjiro's perspective. Blood. It was blood he didn't recognize, but he had become familiar with what human blood smelled like. It only just entered the air, so he might be able to help whoever was in trouble, but there wasn't much time. It wasn't strong like pink marking thing or creepy Hanafuda look-alike, but the smell of rotten oil around the blood source was concerning. Quickly finding himself in a clearing, he saw a girl only a bit older than his Imados crying and trying to crawl away. Her left arm bleeding a fair bit from 5 scratch marks, and both of her legs were clearly broken as a demon stood above her calmly and took off a pink ribbon. Don't worry, the pain will end soon even though you tried to run. The demon spoke with a smirk as he reached down to grab the girl, before Tanjiro appeared in front of him at such a speed. He might as well have appeared out of nowhere and kicked at the demon's chest, instantly pulverizing the upper body with the force from the kick and sending the lower half flying into a tree. Turning around with a growl, Tanjiro grabbed another demon that smelled exactly the same as the one he attacked by the neck before crushing it in his hand, kicking the bodiless head away and causing it to smash into a boulder, pulverizing both the head and stone. However, the demon wasn't out for the count as its headless body slashed at him with the intent to take out his eyes, but Tanjiro merely slammed the body into the ground hard enough to crack the earth beneath him before tossing it at the other regenerating body and causing them both to be pulverized. Looking down at the terrified and injured girl, Tanjiro leaned down to gently pick her up and take her to his sisters where she would be safe while he dealt with the baddies. That was until another rotten oil-like scent hit his nose that was similar to the other two, making him grab her and jump away as an arm was unable to successfully grab either of them, causing another look-alike to appear from some black puddle as he growled at them both. You fucking brat. Do you know how hard I worked to get that girl? You ruined the girl's freshness with every moment. She became 16 only a few days ago. The angry look-alike yells at him, making Tanjiro growl in a warning manner, summoning his tendril as he grew in size a bit to easily carry the terrified girl in his arms, who clung onto him despite her terrified scent. I must calm down. It appears that this one is a youngling, perhaps even a newborn now that I can see him. The first demon he kicked comments as he looked at the younger demon with a critical look despite his pupilless eyes, smirking as he does so. It is not uncommon for our kind to squabble over human prey, especially the younger ones. Tell you what, boy, if you allow me to eat my rightful prey, then I can help you find a hunting ground for yourself, able to consume humans at your leisure while I have my final meal in this town. the demon proposed, making Tanjiro's growling intensify as he hugged the girl closer and took off his muzzle as he prepared to fight, the bulging veins on his head intensifying. He might not know what they were saying, not completely at any rate due to their sounds, but he saw enough to draw a conclusion, with their tones and sense making it clear on what they were doing a few moments ago. However, Tanjiro became confused as he witnesses the angry demon freeze, the first to back away in shock and for the third one to whimper like a wounded dog. "No way, you can't be," the angry demon mutters in pure terror, but his attention shifted when the snap of a twig ran out in the clearing, as Hanako jumped up from above with a glare on her young face. Fourth form, shifting flow slash. Hanako declares as she zoomed down at the angry demon at lightning speed. It took off his head before he could hope to react. Snapping out of his terror, the first demon growled a bit in annoyance and he backed up and looked at the feral look-alike, who snapped back into reality. "Hold her off. So long as one of us survive, we all do," the first demon commands, causing them to nod, and before Hanako could strike either one, they just barely submerged themselves within some swamp-like liquid to escape. "You can't trick us," Hanako says with a smirk, stabbing down into the ground and forcing out the feral look-alike out of the liquid from beneath Hanako, turning his attention away from his sister now that he can see she doesn't require aid. Tanjiro jumped to the side, dodged the first demon as he leapt out of the liquid, though he just barely cut the cheek of the eldest of the Kamado family. However, said eldest child retaliated by using his tendril to restrain the opposing demon before biting into his opponent's neck. GGGHHH. The demon screeched in pain as blood gushed out from the bite as Tanjiro's fangs dug even deeper into his opponent's throat, making sure to cover the girl and turn her away from the sight subconsciously as he felt her shake like a leaf. After a moment of the blood bursting into his mouth and a bit going down his throat, he swung his head to the right where he smelt the familiar scent of Nezuko, who came charging forward with the opportunity presented. Third form, flowing dance. Nezuko states as she swung her blade with a beautiful trail of water behind her, severing all of the demon's limbs in an instant and causing the limbless body to crash into the trunk of the tree, leaving him defenseless as Nezuko placed the sharp edge of her weapon at his neck, ready to decapitate at a moment's notice as Hanako approaches, having dealt with her look-alike quickly once he stopped using the swamp liquid thing. Knowing that his sisters had this under control, he looked at the terrified girl in his arms, breathing heavily as she shook with tears in her eyes, something that made Tanjiro frown. He knew that humans couldn't do what he could and that he wasn't able to heal others, but this didn't mean he had to like it. GGGHHH. The girl began to scream in agony just as soon as she controlled her breathing, taking the young demon off guard, but he still held her close as she began to flail about in his arms, quickly using both of her arms to tightly hold him before kicking her legs out and standing on the ground without aid despite still holding on to Tanjiro. After a moment of her screaming, she appeared to calm down a bit, though was huffing and puffing deeply. "Why, Nai-chan, what happened?" Hanako asks in a panic, to which all the older brother could do was give her a confused look as an answer as he rubbed the girl's back. "She was. But how? That man can't be around here, can he?" Nezuko asks, taking her eyes off of the demon, who also watched entranced and shocked by what he witnessed. That was before noticing the lack of attention on him and jumping forward to attack his sisters. But before Tanjiro could act, two things happened at once. The first was the girl clinging on to him suddenly let go before charging at the demon, sending out a kick that clearly pulverized her former tormentor's ribs before snatching the sword of Hanako and cutting off the older demon's head, killing him in an instant. The second thing was a sudden of thunder booming out through the clearing, to which Tanjiro turned around and easily made note of a girl with yellow hair almost covered in lightning charging right at him with a sword like Hizimoto's half drawn. Being able to smell her intentions, he stepped to the side and took away the shiny sword and it holder thing before she can hurt anyone, making her turn around to look at him in surprise, but otherwise kept a blank expression. "Hey, don't attack him, he's out, brother." Nezuko yells out at the girl with a furious glare, causing her to turn her attention to Hizimoto's and the previously injured girl. "Yeah, he has even been allowed to live by Yubayashiki-san," Hanako tells her, getting the silent girl to raise a disbelieving eyebrow before focusing on Tanjiro once more with a wary and analytical look. That was before a loud and proud voice called out from above, with Tanjiro recognizing it as the person who he smelled earlier. "She is actually telling the truth, Mizunoto." However, the voice said before the voice's owner jumped down and landed between the siblings, "No longer hurt, girl. and silent lady, revealing the person who he smelled earlier to be a fairly tall girl with some kind sharp stick thing and a bow with a quiver filled with arrows. However, both Tanjiro and no longer hurt girl flinched away at the scent coming from the arrows as the tall lady looked at the— Wait, did she always have eyes like him? I think we need answers as to why she just turned into a demon now of all times. Hanako's perspective. Location, unnamed forests. Well, I sent the letter to Oyakata-sama informing him about what happened and my Kasugai crow should return soon. Now then, can someone give me the details? The woman who Hanako could safely assume was meant to be their caretaker once they meet up with the squad they would all be working with. However, now that things were a bit calmer, Hanako took the appearance of the older girl, making note of her standing a fair bit above average height with a slim yet muscular build and decently tanned skin, straight bright red-colored hair that reached just above her waist, violet eyes that took a darker shade, red face paint over her right eye that took the shape of 3 claw marks and possessing a fairly tanned skin tone. As for her clothes, the girl she wore an emerald, green-tinted sleeveless version of the Demon Slayer uniform, except that her version leaves the chest area a bit unbuttoned yet mostly covered. Her uniform also had a pair of combat shorts, also having some clothing that Hanako didn't know the name of to cover her lower half from the front and back while leaving her legs in full view from the sides. A blue cloth wrapped around her waist with metal plating on it and black-colored combat sandals. She also has a green jewel necklace secured safely around her neck with a blue cloth wrapped around right leg that kept a black box securely on her leg and fishnet leggings reaching just below her knees. However, unlike every demon slayer there, this one had a variety of weapons on her, ranging from a quiver filled with arrows strapped to her waist and leaning to the side slightly, a naginata secured on her back, with the black and dark green metal pointing upwards while having 2 cleaver-like blades with the exact same shade of black and green as the naginata strapped onto her back and hidden 2 sheaths on her back. Honestly, we don't know. Our brother ran here as soon as he likely smelt blood and held off a few demons until me and Hanako also got here. Izuko explained, to which Hanako spoke. Actually, those 3 were the same demon going off of their scent. But yeah, the lady there had a human scent until, well, you know when. Hanako trails off a bit as all the girls there turn their heads to look at the now demon woman, who was lovingly stroking Tanjiro's hair while he rested on her lap, making sure to not cut him with her claws with a small smile on her face that allowed her new fangs to be seen within the moonlight, with her brother making muffled purring sounds in delight due to the attention and affection he was receiving. If it wasn't because of the situation and the poor girl becoming a demon, Hanako would have found this adorable and unable to restrain herself from giggling. Sigh, well then, can I have your name? The older demon slayer asks the newly turned demon, to which she looks up at the unnamed slayer with curiosity clear within her bright pink eye, though Hanako was left confused as to why she had the kanji for the number 1 in her right eye. However, as soon as she saw the female demon's eyes, the new demon slayer froze up for just a moment before drawing her naginata with a glare, resulting in Tanjiro getting up from the demon's lap and glaring at the stranger and letting out a warning growl. Oni-chan, calm down. Why did you draw your weapon? Nezuko reassures their brother while Hanako got up and drew her own sword before getting ready to use the 7th form at a moment's notice, with her older sister demanding an answer with a glare, while their caretaker frowns. The 12 most powerful demons alive have a number engraved into their eyes. Going off of the kanji in her eye, she would be the 7th most powerful demon after Muzan Kibutsuji himself, meaning that she likely has been a demon for some time. She explained, but everyone was surprised when the demon girl began to speak. Setoko, Shizen, me, loyal, Tanjiro-sama. The now named Setoko explained slowly, as if she had never spoken before. However, Tanjiro ended up looking at her in confusion before making a whining noise that caused the kanji-eyed demon to tilt her head with a small frown. Tanjiro-sama, deserve respect, she explained to the little demon, who hung his head down with a whine before nodding in a defeated manner, clearly not happy with it but wasn't going to force anything on her. Message from Oyakata-sama. A Kasugai crow called out for attention, causing them all to turn their heads and look at the bird as they landed on the slayer's shoulder, who took a letter from their leg and began to read aloud. Greetings, my children. I thank you for updating me on what has occurred within this unusual situation, and the position I have placed you all in before making any decisions. I would like to request that you continue to update me on any notable events before making a decision that many would regret. Now then, I have decided that the girl you have described shall not be killed, though do keep a close eye on her. Tanjiro Kamado's situation is already quite unusual, and I do not want an innocent soul to be punished because we all gave in to fear, especially if they desire to help us. I trust in your judgment to deal with the situation about the young girl's family and her friends. Thank you for the report. From Kage Yubayashiki. Their caretaker read with a frown, but sighed and forced themselves to relax, though she still looked at Tanjiro and Satoko cautiously while putting her naginata away. It appears those are the orders of Oyakata-sama. I apologize for attacking your brother, Kamado-san. The yellow-wearing girl says, almost causing Hanako to jump out of her once the quiet girl spoke. She had completely forgotten she was there honestly. However, this does cause Hanako to actually look her over without worry or tension consuming her. Because of this, she saw that this girl was standing at 5.5 tall with thin black hair that begins to turn a yellowish brown before fading into orange and yellow strands near the end, worn tied into a ponytail on the right side of her head and fastened by a lightning bolt-shaped hairclip. She also has gentle eyes of a dark lilac color that are framed by thick eyelashes and has a straight fringe and 2 loose, chin-length strands that curve downwards from above each of her ears. As for her clothes, she wore an electric blue-colored version of the Demon Slayer uniform with a knee-length pleated skirt with the uniform pants underneath, and a short yellow and orange-colored cloak with a white triangle pattern across it, fastened on one side by a light red triple knot. She also had a pair of kaihan, tied at the front in 3 white bows, with the same pattern as her cloak, lightning blue-colored tabai socks and white lace zori. No problem. I can understand why you tried it since you weren't told about everything yet. By the way, what are your names if I can ask? Nezuko asks the 2 unnamed girls, to which the yellow-wearing girl briefly flipped a coin before answering. I am Kanao Tsuyuri, she says simply, not speaking any further, and thus their caretaker took that as her cue to introduce herself. I am Kushi Yuzui, and while I will say I don't like this situation, I will admit that it shall be quite flamboyant. The Naginata wielder finally introduces herself, smiling a small bit as she does so before gaining a serious look on her face again as she looked at their new demonic companion. Can you tell me the names of your friends and family? I already have a cover story in mind that will explain why you will be gone from the village for a while. Kushi asks the female demon, making frown a bit before sobbing slightly, to which Tanjiro leaned up to her and wiped away her tears and causing her to regain her smile. Do you think, Tanjiro-sama, and no, family, Kazumi, fiancé. She struggled out with her new limited vocabulary, causing the most experienced demon slayer within this small group to nod her head. I see. Sorry for the misfortune, but we should get going. The rest of our new squad should already be at the village looking for the demon we just took care of. Kushi orders, which everyone nodded and began to walk to the village, with Satoko picking up Tanjiro and carrying him once he reverted to his child size. Inosuke's perspective. Location, Northwest Town. So, where the hell are the rest of our team? AI questioned, making Inosuke smile at the lively girl for a moment before speaking, looking around for a hotel building that they can stay in for the night. Assuming that the other caretaker of your squad met up with the rest, they should arrive late at night or pretty early in the morning. Inosuke explained to her, but before she was likely to respond, they both heard a sudden bang sound that caused them both to jump in surprise before Inosuke narrowed his eyes. That sounded like a gunshot. We should investigate, but stay close. The ice breath user orders, causing AI to nod as they ran in the direction of the gunshot. Quickly turning around the corner, they found a pure white-skinned demon being kicked in their direction with flesh blades on its arms that were typical of a lower-level demon. Nature breathing third form, bamboo basket. AI declares, reacting quickly as she spun around and easily decapitated the flying demon, causing its head and body to stumble across the ground before quickly turning to ash. Hey, that bastard was mine to kill. He heard the brash yell of a familiar yell, and while Inosuke knew the true nature of his friend's current appearance when he told him in Jaioma, it didn't stop the blue-haired boy from flinching at the bulging veins across the transformed boy's face and his demonic eyes. Hey, are you the demon behind the missing girls, or are you like Kentaro? AI demands an answer as she got in a defensive position, holding out her left arm with her serrated sword in a reverse grip while holding the other blade behind her while pointing it at his friend. Wait, he's a friend of mine, Inosuke tells the wild girl, confusing her as she calmed down and relaxed a bit faster than he initially thought before looking over the demon-looking boy behind him and perking up as she noticed more details about him. Wait, you were that guy that was with Bizuko at the final selection thing. It was Anya, correct. What the hell happened to you? She inquired, making Inosuke's sweat drop at another incorrect name that wasn't going to change anytime soon. However, as he turned around to look at Genya, the ice breath user did make note of the changes in his friend's appearance besides the temporary demonic features that will only last so long. The first was that his friend apparently had a growth spurt during the last 2 weeks, growing to now stand at 511 tall while gaining a more muscular body, and having grown out his hair, and gaining a mohawk hairstyle, the strands much longer and visible around his neck. As for his clothes, Genya was now wearing the standard Demon Slayer uniform with a dark olive green color while still sporting his old purple yukata. He even had his own Nichiren blade, crafted to take the appearance and design of a wakizashi, and a smaller length while possessing 2 hollow ovals that overlap its core and are a dull shade of brown for its handguard. However, Inosuke was a little surprised to see a shotgun in Genya's possession, but smirked a bit as he realized that his friend's incredible marksman skills won't be wasted if it was made by someone from the Swordsmith village. My name is Genya, not Anya Brat. Wait, you're that girl that accompanied Nezuko's sister, correct? Genya yells, irritated by the incorrect name before blinking in surprise and calming down, changing back to normal as he approached the 2 slayers as he relaxed a bit. Yep, actually, have you seen Bizuko or Nahoka? I thought that we would be on the same team. AI asks him, to which Genya shook his head while Inosuke placed his hand on the ground and smiled a bit when his enhanced sense of touch detected the other 3 members of this new squad and the other caretaker, but raised an eyebrow in confusion. He was aware that the sisters had their brother traveling with them, but why was there a second demon as well? Well, I can sense the others. We should go meet up with them, but there is something I need to tell you both before we do, Inosuke said, gaining the attention of both slayers. Huh? What do you mean, Inosuke? Genya asks, making Inosuke sigh a bit as he knew the teen wasn't going to take this lightly. As ordered by Oyakata-sama, we are to watch over a demon that hasn't eaten a single human and is even protective of the humans he considers family, he explained, causing the breathless demon slayer to widen his eyes and growl. But before he could do anything, Aoi spoke up. Oh, so Kentaro will be joining our squad. Hahaha, our team will be unstoppable. The boar head-wearing girl exclaimed happily, making the angered teen turn to look at her with a growl while Inosuke widens his eyes in surprise. You already knew about that demon, Genya demands angrily, reaching out to grab Aoi, but the wild girl ended up grabbing his arm with both of her hands, stepped to the side a bit, and made use of her momentum, allowing her to toss Genya over her shoulder and slam his body harshly onto the ground before pinning him there by stopping her foot on his chest and making the demon-eating human lose his breath as he gasped out in pain. Listen well, Anya. Kentaro isn't like the rest and is actually very kind. Heck, he is like a wolf pup, so as long as you don't hurt those close to him, he'll ignore you at worst and will be very friendly. So don't try anything with my subordinate. Ai warns him with a growl, making Genya scoff before Inosuke steps in. Okay, listen. Yubayashiki-sama himself is pardoning Tanjiro-san and has stated that should he try to eat a human, then he is to be put down. The ice breath user explained to them both, to which Genya reluctantly nods his head while Ai clenched her fists, clearly displeased at how easily her friend was going to be put down if he does something they don't like. Fine, but we should meet up with the rest, Genya suggests, making Inosuke nod as he walked in the direction that he felt the rest of the squad and Kashi. With that, the two followed the ice breath user as he walked in the direction that the rest of the slayers were at, hoping that he could relax a bit now. The sight of the extra demon with the kanji for one in their eye instantly told him that wasn't going to be the case. Setoko's perspective. Time skip, 3 days. Location, Buddhist temple. So, you think this old temple is where another demon resides? Nezuko asks Kashi, who nods her head. While Setoko didn't properly understand everything about these demon slayers, she did get the idea that they were following the directions of talking birds. She was honestly beginning to question her own sanity, especially when she found it so easy to forget what they were saying. She was definitely there, but it was almost like a fog existed inside her mind, one that allowed her to piece things together but always stopped her from forming a full picture. That is correct. Given the number of people who have disappeared within this area, it is likely the demon has consumed enough people to develop a blood demon art. Speaking of which, the Naginata wielder explained before trailing off a bit as she looked at Setoko, causing the female demon to flinch at the gaze. It's for the best that we learn what your abilities are. So, you will face the demon head on, she orders, making Tanjiro stand in front of Setoko with a disapproving sound as he glared at Kashi. Calm down, little demon. You lot can't kill each other outside of maybe a few blood demon arts, and even if a demon can kill another, I'll be sure to step in, the Naginata wielder says without much concern to the little demon. But as the eldest Kamado was beginning to grow in size, Satoko placed a hand on his shoulder, drawing the attention of the tiny demon and the humans with them to herself. Need, prove, self, Satoko explained to the childish demon, who pouted behind his muzzle but ultimately relented. With that, she walked forward to the temple cautiously when she heard a snarl, causing Satoko to turn around as she brought up her arms to guard against an incoming punch, only for her assailant to spin around her and deliver a kick to her back that caused her bones to crack under the pressure, and sent her flying into the abandoned Buddhist temple. Grrrraaggghhh. The demon screeched at her, making Satoko stand up as she feels her bones repair almost instantly and stand up, her clothes becoming a bit more ripped apart and dirtied by both dirt and blood than what it was before now. However, now that Satoko had a good look at the demon, she was honestly a bit intimidated as she saw the giant scar on their chest, the unhealthy and monstrous gray-colored skin, and the muscles. She wasn't a fighter at all, but she had seen a number of men back home with intimidating physiques due to needing to carry heavy items and boxes filled with lots of supplies before. But this was so much worse. Wait, that sounded like Tanjiro-sama. Was he worried for her? How was she able to hear him at all for that matter? Damn it, she might be in trouble. She heard Kushi mutter under her breath. Was she actually concerned for her? I don't really care. That one definitely came from the scarred boy since it took a moment to recognize his voice due to barely hearing it. Genya-san, you can't be serious. Kushi-chan, please, you need to step in. She heard the voice of the youngest, Hana or something along those lines if she was correct. I don't like this. I'm going to step in. She heard the voice of Nezuko next, but her focus was snapped back into reality. She felt a painful kick to her gut and was sent flying into the air. Damn it. She needs help, so let us go. Okay, that was definitely Ai-san. Satoko was honestly touched by her concern, but she drew her attention away from the worried words of the demon slayers as she spun around a bit, actually landing a kick that sent the feral demon right through the temple they have been staying around to attack and consume humans. She was also sure she felt the demon's ribs crack under the pressure of her kick. Seems like you were all jumping to conclusions. She heard Inosuke speak with a small smile, but Satoko was just barely able to block some kind of red energy that traveled across the ground and slammed into her, causing her to crash right into a tree as her blood dripped onto the ground. Too fast, Satoko spoke in barely a whisper as her body worked to repair itself. She couldn't do this. She was simply another child within her village a few days ago, and now she was dragged into this supernatural world that she simply thought were horror stories. Are you going to let them down, young one? She then suddenly heard a voice within her head, the world seemingly slowing down as the demon charged at her once more with his fist covered in a red aura. Who are you? She asked this voice, hearing a small chuckle that somewhat put her at ease. Who I am does not matter, for my time in your world ended a long time ago. I'm surprised we are even able to speak, to be honest. But you haven't answered my question, child. The voice told her gently before reminding her of their question, to which Satoko remained silent before answering with a question of her own. But what could I hope to do? I'm not a fighter. I haven't even seen many fights. I'm just going to be a burden to them in the end. The female demon says, but was surprised when she heard another voice call out in her mind. Not true. Satoko-san. Strong. Believe. Self. This voice was. But how can he be talking to her when he was also frozen like everything else? Tanjiro-sama. How are? Sure. She couldn't help but ask, wanting to curl into and hug herself for comfort, but was unable to. Strength. Within. Just look. The demon boy told her, to which she stood up and raised her bloodied arm at the charging demon on instinct, actually feeling something well up from within her. Good luck, little one. From here on out, your actions with this power will be your own. The unknown voice says, both it and Tanjiro's leaving her mind as everything began to move like normal. But Satoko then clenched her bloodied hand into a fist, her claws painlessly cutting into her palm and drawing blood as he declares, nature's wrath, tree-bind flourishing burial. She declares, with the roots from trees surrounding the two demons instantly reaching out and detaining her feral opponent instantly, completely covering them in gigantic roots that then begin to intertwine to the point that the roots became a new tree that left only the feral demon's head free. With the enemy demon trapped, Satoko looked at her bloodied hand, which had healed the injuries already, in pure shock. Was that really me? she thought to herself in pure shock, unresponsive to the cheering and sounds made by the demon slayers. However, she suddenly snapped back to reality and gasped in horror when suddenly, an arrow flew right into the monster's skull, causing their veins beginning to bulge an unhealthy purple before coughing up large amounts of blood, and their nose begins to bleed as a deadly purple spots now began to spread across their body before they began to disintegrate. That could me. Satoko spoke in horror as she watched the demon die painfully. She knew that they needed to be put down from the stories surrounding demons and demon slayers alone, but she was also a demon. If she ever hurt anyone, even those that deserved it, would she end up like that demon? Killed horribly and slowly by poison, not even given a quick death. She heard a muffled cheer and felt a tiny body hug her leg, causing the female demon to look down at Tanjiro as he stared at her with stars effectively shining with admiration within his eyes. She smiled slightly as she picked him up and hugged him, uncaring of the reactions of the rest as she made a vow to herself. Protect Tanjiro-sama. Stay strong. For us, Satoko promised, tightly holding the smaller-sized demon before allowing his sisters to take him back. After all, he was merely a child. Nezuko's perspective. Time skip, 1 day. Location, Asakusa. Wow, it's night right now, but this town is so bright. And the buildings are so tall. How can a place like this exist? Hanako exclaimed in excitement as she looked around the new city the group has entered, with Tanjiro holding her hand and smiling at her behind his muzzle. And while the group certainly drew some odd and wary glances, they were ultimately ignored. Hanako, I think we should leave this area. Most of us are doing great at the moment, Nezuko says, feeling a bit ill with all the lights and people. She looked at the rest, to which she can see everyone else being affected to varying degrees, from Kanao mostly looking at the ground and quickly flinching at the lights and looking down once more, Kashi occasionally covering her ears and taking a calming breath due to the many loud sounds around them. Inosuke was actually looking dizzy and sick, and Ai was left silent and looking uncomfortable, holding Inosuke's hand to both help him and reassure herself. Please, Satoko begged Hanako, making the girl snap out of her excitement once she noticed the state everyone was in and nodded her head. Okay then, sorry about that everyone, Hanako says, feeling a bit guilty, but stops as Tanjiro rubbed her head with an affectionate hum. Don't worry, Kamado-chan. Not your fault that the city environment can be a pain when you have an enhanced sense, Kashi says, to which Nezuko widens her eyes in surprise. Wait, you all have an enhanced sense, like Hanako and Tanjiro's sense of smell? She inquired, making Genya blink at this. Wait, we all have an enhanced sense. Mine is taste, so what is yours? He asked curiously, making Nezuko giggle a bit. I don't actually have an enhanced sense, but I have an incredible sense of intuition. Ojai-chan helped me train with it, so it kind of became a danger sense. The eldest daughter of the Kamado family, though she nearly jumped when she heard Kanao speak. She has barely spoken the entire time the squad has been together now that she thinks about it. Mine is sight. It helps with the speed one moves with when using thunder breathing quite a bit, she explained, to which Nezuko just notices the coin in her hand. After seeing her use it a few times, she couldn't help but wonder if the girl used it to make decisions, and if so, she would admit that she was becoming very concerned for her teammate. Well, what do you know, Inosuke? Seems we aren't the only ones with such a flamboyant sense. As for me though, I have an enhanced sense of hearing, to the point that I can hear the faint beating of functioning organs of a human and demon, Kashi explained with a large grin, making Inosuke laugh a bit as he smirked a little. I have a sense of touch that can detect quite a bit. It was how me, Genya and Ai found you lot back in Satoko-chan's old town, Inosuke explained, making said demon sadly smile a little at the mention of her home and thus the reminder of her situation. One of my breathing forms is technically an enhanced sense. It allows to measure someone's strength compared to mine and thus how much of a threat they are, Ai says, keeping her voice down but still boasting proudly about her own sense, which caused the female demon of the group to pout. Don't have gift, she says, still struggling to speak somewhat but able to get across what she wanted. This, however, caused Tanjiro to leave Hanako's side and stand in front of his fellow demon, jumping up and down a bit with his arms held upwards. Getting the message, the younger demon picked up the currently tiny Tanjiro, and once he was held within her arms, he reached out and softly petted her head and nuzzled her cheek. What he wanted to say despite the muzzle in his mouth being clear as day to the group. He's right. While I don't trust you, you are far from weak. Surprisingly, it was Genya that said this, causing Satoko to give a weak smile that was genuine, her eyes beginning to water slightly while Tanjiro gave him a thumbs up. Hey, who are you and what have you done with the real Anya, you faker? Ai yells in shock, pointing at the scarred boy accusingly, resulting in him turning around and snarling at the boar head-wearing girl. Shut it, you stupid boarhead, Genya yells, which actually lightens the spirits of the group as they all chuckle a bit in amusement, the only exception being Kanao. But while the group was laughing a bit, Nezuko did notice her brother looking at the Thunder Breath user with a confused and concerned look. Good luck, Kano-chan. My brother isn't going to rest until he helps you open up now, she thinks to herself, but turns back around to look at a small noodle stand. Come on, let's get something to eat. Then we can look for the demons in the area, Nezuko suggests, making the group head to the stand and order some udon as Nezuko wrapped Tanjiro's head up with a blue cloth when his eyes began to hurt from all the bright lights within the city. Wow, hey old man, this stuff tastes great. You should make this in a restaurant in the future, AI advises him, causing the man who made and served them the food to chuckle in amusement. Thank young lady. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go for a minute, he tells her with a smile before walking away for a moment. As he does so, Tanjiro leaned next to Nezuko and began to sniff her bowl curiously when he suddenly froze and slowly turned in a random direction, almost entranced and confusing the group. Oni-chan, Nezuko asks, reaching out her hand to grab her older brother's shoulder when he began to growl in rage, his demonic presence flaring up and taking everyone aback by its potency and making breathing harder to breathe. And while Satoko was unaffected, she became so stiff that she almost looked like a statue. What the fuck? Genya growled out, full-on collapsing onto the ground and struggling to stand up, as if Tanjiro's very presence made gravity 100 times more powerful and was actually trying to push them all into the ground. Hanako, he only acted like this when he smelled something. Try to find out what it is, she orders the girl, who ended up sniffing the air. The terrified scream that tore its way out of her sister's throat instantly set warning bells of Nezuko's intuition to flare up far more than it ever has. But it appeared to snap Tanjiro out of his trance as he immediately ran over to and hugged his youngest sister, whimpering sadly as he nuzzled into her cheek, likely believing that he caused his sister's terror. En-nechan, he's here, Hanako says through terrified sobs as she clung onto her brother tightly for comfort, confusing the rest of their squad as they struggled to breathe or even sit up while Satoko appeared to be slowly returning to reality. But the implication of Hanako's words instantly enraged Nezuko as she realized what triggered Tanjiro. Kibutsuji, she growled out silently, instantly running into the crowd to look for the man. She did quickly come across him, but before she could even hope to reach out and try and take that monster's head for herself, she heard a woman scream in fear, confusion, and pain, making Nezuko take her eyes off of Muzan to see a demon pinning a woman beneath them and biting into her shoulder. No, Nezuko yells out horrified, confused on why a demon was attacking people so out in the open, but she put that aside for now. For now, she tackled the man off of the woman and pinned him down with an ease that surprised Nezuko. Just how young was this demon? Dear, what's wrong with you? The injured and bleeding woman cried out with a large mixture of conflicting emotions, allowing the young demon slayer to piece together what must have happened. This man was literally just turned, likely because the demon king sensed her brother and needed a distraction, something she confirmed and was infuriated with when she saw him drag a woman away from the gathering crowd with a child in his arm. I think he has a disease I have seen sometimes. It makes people go feral for a while and can last a long time on someone, Nezuko says, trying to calm everything down. The woman seemed like she was about to speak, but Nezuko became alarmed when the surrounding began to change into a somewhat misty appearance with numerous flower patterns floating around and surround them, the crowd from earlier disappearing as well. What's going on? The woman asks, frightened, but both humans had their attention drawn in by the sound of approaching footsteps, causing them to look up and see an approaching woman and man, to which Nezuko became wary of them and tensed as she saw the large amounts of blood flowing down the woman's arm and pieced together that they were both demons. But what confused he was the fact that her intuition wasn't warning her of danger with these two, which made the eldest daughter of the Kamado family to look them both over in more detail as she kept the thrashing demon below her pinned down. The female demon stood at 411 tall and had long, dark brown hair, parted in the center and worn braided back into a large, low bun, which is held in place by a floral Tama Kanzashi hairpin. She has large, gentle eyes that do not possess pupils, only a haze of lavender that fades to dark purple the higher it goes, and notably red lips in contrast to her pale complexion. She was also wearing a dark purple medium-length homongi kimono that is decorated with wavy pale purple tree branches and red flowers, and a cream-colored teiko musubai to secure it around her waist, as well as plain white socks and violet zori sandals. Her male companion, however, stood at 5'2" tall and had a more simple appearance, having an average physical build with pale skin and lavender purple eyes. He has short hair that is neatly styled and vertically shaded from a dull and light green to black. As for his clothes, he was wearing a button-up collared shirt under an all-white Iramuji Haori and dark blue Seigo Sendehira-styled Hakama pants. I'm afraid that the young girl is correct when she says that your husband has been inflicted with an illness that will last a long time. If you three can follow me, I believe we can answer a few questions. The demon woman says, walking forward to Nezuko, and the demon thrashing beneath her before he suddenly froze and fell into unconsciousness as she approached. Here, luckily he didn't bite deep, so these bandages should stop the bleeding for a while. The green-haired demon says with a scowl, clearly not happy with his own actions as he helped stop the human woman's bleeding. Who are you two? And are you really trying to help? Nezuko asks, getting off of the turned man, and while she took a step back to gain some distance from the demonic pair, she did nothing else since his intuition still didn't act up, and besides, if Tanjiro could resist his hunger, who was to say that others out there couldn't do the same? That didn't mean she wasn't cautious though. My name is Tameo, and I am a doctor that merely wishes to help. Though, I understand why our nature is making you cautious, demon slayer. The now named Tameo tells her in reassurance, smiling softly as she does so. Wait, a demon slayer? Does that mean? The woman asks in stunned shock, making Tameo nod her head at the unspoken question. Indeed, myself and Yushiro are demons, though we lack the hunger that overtakes most demons' minds. Like your husband has sadly fallen to, thanks to being a recently turned one, she explained, making the poor woman widen her eyes in horror, though the look she gave her newly turned husband was filled with a bit more with understanding and concern. Sorry, but I need to find my siblings. I'll look for the both of you soon though, Nezuko says, deciding to trust the demonic pair for now before turning and leaving. Noticing the understanding nod and smile from the demonic woman before she turned to her companion, not noticing the male demon's simultaneous look of admiration and annoyance when looking at Tameo and the injured woman and her husband respectively.